A couple sells their newborn at a slave market. The buyer is a nobleman with his own arena. That night he drops the baby into it, laughing. The kid crawls past a skull and keeps going. He grows up between blades and dried blood. In his first fight, his eye burns red. The dust settles and he is the last one up. Years later, Happy walks out grinning. He brings no weapon and no armor, just fists. A student screams that they sent him out to die. Deathbringer charges in with a spiked club. The club hammers down a second time. Happy rises with a broken spike in each fist. He ducks the next swing and comes up inside it. The spike goes into Deathbringer's face. Happy raises his fists and smiles. In the cells, the man he beat learns why he lost. A rooster hops onto the barred window and crows over the cells. Down in the dark, Deathbringer jolts awake screaming, his head wrapped in bandages. A veteran fighter sits on a barrel with his soup and tells him to warm up for the next match. Deathbringer answers by smashing his fist into the stone floor. He keeps pounding while Happy lies nearby, watching him with a lazy grin. The veteran keeps eating and calls him lucky because that guy tunes his skill down to the opponent. Deathbringer chews on the word. Adjusts? He insists he only dropped his guard and one cheap kick happened to land. The veteran nearly chokes laughing. Had the kid fought properly, the big man would already be dead. Deathbringer's face goes flat and he asks the old man to repeat that. The veteran points his spoon at the corpse bin in the corner because that's where the body would be. Deathbringer lunges at him and the veteran waves a hand and says he's only being honest. Then a bright laugh cuts through the room. Save the fighting for the arena. The veteran barks a yes sir on pure reflex. Deathbringer freezes with his fist still up. The big man looks away, lost, while the veteran smiles down at his bowl. Nobody speaks. The other slaves press against the wall and study their own feet. Deathbringer scoffs. He cannot believe that milk-breathed punk is the one running this place. He decides the shaking makes sense since word must have spread that he beat the kid. Looking around the cell, he writes every man in it off as a weakling. This whole pit belongs to him now, he tells himself. He only has to take the kid down first. Deathbringer stomps across the floor and calls out to the little runt. Happy turns with huge eyes and no clue what is going on. The big man wants to know how he ended up sold here and starts guessing at war debts and pirates. Happy says his father sold him the day he was born. Deathbringer asks if he actually grew up inside the arena. Happy grins. The people here raised him and they taught him how to fight. That snags Deathbringer. If those men trained the kid, they should be stronger, so why is the cell trembling? Happy peels his shirt off over his head and admits he chose his words badly. The cloth dangles from his knuckles, forgotten. Every man who raised him died a long time ago, and his torso is one solid map of scars. Deathbringer's mouth stops working. Nobody is left to teach Happy anything, and nobody gives him a real fight anymore. Fresh faces just keep arriving instead. Happy points at the big man, who is now sweating straight through his bandages. Like you, scratching his head, he explains that sizing up newcomers is part of his job. He eats damage on purpose so it looks like he's losing, and the crowd buys it. The fight replays behind Deathbringer's eyes, spikes and all, and he roars that the kid was toying with him. Happy drops a friendly hand on his shoulder. There's no reason to brawl during break, he says, because everyone here dies fighting sooner or later. Deathbringer's eye stretches wide, and his voice comes out as a tiny, polite excuse me. Happy swings, eyes shut, still smiling. The punch tears through and wood bursts into splinters. The training dummy lies shredded across the stones. Deathbringer kneels in the wreckage, and the veteran tells him everyone starts out like that. Elsewhere, a hand holds up a wooden arena past stamped Iron Face, silver grade. William squints at it and wonders whether Iron Face is supposed to be a nickname. His senior had thrown an arm around him earlier, saying the pub came first, so William could cover his share too. He pushed his betting money over too, with orders to place every bet exactly as written. Standing in the queue, William swears he only wants to see Happy fight one more time. Anyone would take him for a regular gambler. The arena squats above the crowd, and the signs bark that passes must be carried at all times. Far out past the fields, headstones sit in rows beside the gravedigger's house. The old gravedigger shoulders his shovel and calls Sagar out to collect corpses from the Lucashtian Eye Arena. Sagar looks up from his reading and answers him right away. His book lies open on a page of anatomy sketches. They roll up with a donkey cart, and the old man guesses one cart may not be enough for yesterday's haul. Below them, the ground is carpeted with bodies and a sword left standing in the dirt. Sagar promises to stack them well, and the gravedigger laughs and takes his word for it. 1 month on the job, the old man thinks, and the boy is already the best best hire he ever made. Cigar lifts a dead man's hand out of the pile and turns it over. His eyes narrow above the red mask. Dark bruises spread over the corpse's ribs, and the same marks sit on the next face he uncovers. Nearly everybody in the pile carries them. Judging by the size and the shape, he reads the marks as bare fists. The wounds are days old, which puts them long before the final fight. Crouched among the swords, Cigar cannot square it. An arena known for weapon combat should not be full of fist damage. The old man's shout cracks across the field. He wants Cigar over there right now. Cigar jogs up and asks what's wrong. The gravedigger points at a corpse and says the man belonged to the royal family. Somebody plucked out the hair and eyebrows, but the moles and teeth match the missing person notice. Cigar reads that notice while the old man shakes. A royal, gone a month, dumped in an arena pit. Cigar turns to fetch the lord and the church officials. The gravedigger grabs his coat and begs him to wait. Reporting this, he says, drags the two of them into the fire as well. The king would sooner believe a pair of gravediggers plucked a royal bald to sell his body parts. Burying the whole thing quietly starts to sound very reasonable to the old man. Cigar refuses. Crimes get punished, and he wants justice even if it costs him his life. He walks off across the sand and promises to come back. The gravedigger watches him shrink into the distance, and his opinion updates fast. He hired poorly. Once the crown hears about this, every single person tied to that arena hangs. Back in the stands, two hands close tight around the wooden pass. William settles into the roaring crowd for one last look at Happy's match, with no idea what Cigar just dug out of the dirt. The sun sits high over the village and the sky is completely clear. Then black clouds roll in and cover it in seconds. Lightning cracks down beside a house while rain hammers the roof. Inside, a woman rushes for the door. The weather flipped out of nowhere and her laundry is still hanging outside. She shoves the door open into the downpour, her eyes stretch wide at whatever is waiting out there. The yard is packed with royal knights, spears up, a warhorse behind them. Dozens of them stand in the rain, and she has no clue why the crown sent men this far out. The column marches past her, straight toward the arena on the hill. A spear butt slams down into the wet ground outside the gate. Their commander turns and tells them a royal family murderer is hiding inside that building. Nobody gets out, he says. Capture every single one and behead anyone who resists. The knights roar a yes back at him. Down in the pit, one slave pins another and drives a blade toward his throat. The crowd flinches and yells. William hides behind his hand and asks whether every match here is this ugly, except for Happy's. The announcer strolls out with both arms wide and calls the main event. He lowers his voice and asks the crowd for their attention. Then he asks if they remember the serial killer who terrorized the whole village a month ago. Faces in the stands go stiff. That guy? No way. Patrols and guards could not touch him, and people started calling him the Nocturnal Demon. Somebody points out he should be rotting in a cell waiting for the noose. The announcer raises one finger. That man has come to this arena, and the first battle is... Happy walks out under the torches, beaming like it's a holiday. Of course they start with him. William grabs the bars. The murderer is actually in here? The announcer calls for him to come out. A rough laugh answers from the tunnel, and the killer says this place is ridiculous. They will feed him and house him as long as he keeps slaughtering people? He decides they dragged him to heaven, not hell. Two curved blades sit crossed in his hands. He tips a blade against his cheek and asks if they should get started. Then a huge shadow steps into the tunnel and the killer stops dead. The captain of the Royal Knights walks in and asks how this trash is not on the gallows. The killer just stares. Whoever runs this arena pulled a prisoner out of a royal cell, so the captain reads the place as tied to the kingdom. The captain's jaw tightens while he works it out. The killer glances up at the red cloak beside him. His whole eye lights up and a small O escapes him. Behind the knight, the door out to the sand stands wide open. The killer looks down at the blades they handed him. With an open door and a weapon in his fist, he figures they want him to go out and play, and his face splits into a grin. He lunges forward with both curved blades leading. The captain's glove clamps around the shaft of his polearm. The killer's eyes blow open as the weapon comes around. Out on the sand, the announcer holds his pose with one hand raised. Nothing comes out of the tunnel. The crowd starts jeering. They call it a lie and swear the murderer was never here. Then one of them spots movement and tells the rest to look. A royal knight walks onto the sand instead. People ask if he's a contestant, then answer themselves that he can't be. Knights shove into the stands with spears while William stares at them. A heavy man pushes back and yells that he did nothing, that they should get out of his way. A spear punches straight through the man's chest. The captain says the king ordered every resistor killed, and the body hits the sand. Everyone kneel. William drops to his knees, soaked and shaking. Blood spreads between the scattered coins and the kneeling bodies. The announcer curls up in the dirt while the captain asks if he cannot hear the order. One man in the whole pit is still on his feet. Happy stands there smiling at him. The captain asks if he finds the situation amusing. Happy says nothing, barefoot on the sand with empty hands. The polearm comes around in a blur. The captain hauls it back up over his shoulder. He grumbles that every last one of them has to be forced to obey. His fingers twist tight on the shaft. His boot digs a crater into the ground. The blade comes down and Happy's head is right against the flat of it. The kids stop moving before the swing even started, and the captain cannot work out how. Happy slips under the edge and the blade tears past his hair. Steel bites the sand and he rises out of the dust, grinning with both hands out. He drives into the captain's head and the big man's neck snaps sideways. Dust rolls up and hides the two of them completely. The knights freeze and William screams. Happy is on him now, grinning right into his face. The captain clenches his teeth and curses him. His hands find the shaft again and the weapons clash. He roars and rips the polearm around with everything he has. The captain's eye jumps wide open again. The kid is standing there again like he read the attack before it was thrown. Happy is too close for the captain to swing anything. The captain is far too late to step back. That leaves one perfect window for a punch, and Happy drops straight into it. The fist lands and the captain leaves the ground, cloak flapping, weapon spinning loose. His head whips back and blood sprays out of his nose. William stares with his mouth hanging open. Happy plants his feet in the churned sand and raises his fists for more. The captain is still standing. William cannot believe the man took that. The knight swings the polearm again, screaming through his teeth. The blade carves a white arc across the arena. It sweeps through empty air and dust. He stops, bleeding, and searches around for the kid. Happy is already behind him with a fist cocked. The punch lands flush and drives him into the ground. The captain goes down in the dirt and Happy stands over him smiling. Then the arrows come, fired at Happy from the stands. They punch into his back and shoulder and blood sprays across the sand. The captain lies there with arrow shafts stuck in the ground around him. His men shout to ask if he's alright. He only manages a damn it. He drags a hand down his bloodied face and asks what on earth is happening. One green eye locks onto the boy. Who is that guy? Happy sprawls flat with an arrow in him, eyes rolled back, still smiling like the whole thing was fun. The captain kneels with his fist buried in the sand. Behind him lies the kid he could not touch, and nobody in this arena knows what he actually is. The captain kneels in the churned sand, breathing hard, arrows stuck in the ground around him. His green eye locks onto the kid lying there. That smile reads like mockery. He hauls himself upright and grips the polearm. If the boy wants the humiliation to last, he will behead him right here. Happy's fist lies open in the dirt with an arrow beside it. A scream cuts across the arena. Stop! The captain turns with a question on his face. A man is sprinting at him across the sand. Lucastian runs this arena and he pulls up beside the body, doubled over and wheezing. He says Happy only fought because he thought it was a match. The kid has never been outside these walls. A ringed finger jabs at the ground. Anyone in equipment is just an opponent to Happy. Lucastian calls him a trained dog. The captain's teeth grind together. That one green eye narrows to a slit. Lucastian keeps talking. The expression on that face comes from a disability the kid has had since childhood. He shoves his own cheeks up to demonstrate. The facial nerves are wrecked and the muscles froze in a grin. The captain asks what? Happy as a baby, arms up, beaming. Everyone who saw that face decided the kid was cheerful. The infant giggles in a stranger's arms after his parents dumped him. A blade swings in the dark, blood sprays, a grown man drops, and the baby keeps laughing. Two bodies lie in the dirt with a knife buried in one. Watching the person who raised him die, he looked delighted. Prison was simple. Inmates piled onto him, yelling that nobody was left to protect him. Bodies fly off the stones anyway. He survived every cell because he could actually fight. A prisoner grips the bars and asks what is going on in there. Happy sits against the wall in his own blood. Bodies either side, grinning at nothing. Lucastian says the truth is the opposite. The kid cannot express himself, and he is terrified the whole time. A huge inmate steps over him in the dark. Out on the sand, the captain listens with the boy at his feet. People simply do not believe it. Happy lies on his side, cheek in the dirt, teeth bared. Lucastian says look again, because that face is pain. The stands are buried in torn bedding slips and blood. The crowd fell for the smile and kept coming back. Lucastian admits he was captivated too. That is why he never ran and why he came out here. His mouth barely moves. He calls this repayment for joy he could never feel in his own lifetime. The polearm blade hangs over Happy, who lies still under the torches. The captain lifts it anyway. He calls the speech nonsense, since everyone here dies regardless. The polearm comes around. Sparks burst off the blade in the torchlight. Boots dangle above a wooden platform. Lucastian confessed and hanged the next day with every man who ran the arena. The gallows went up in the square, right below the balcony where the king takes his morning air. The king looks down and his temper cools a few degrees. That is the only mercy handed out today. In the prison, the ones waiting for execution day sob through the bars. One says he doesn't want to die here. William hugs his knees. He overheard that everyone involved is already dead and their turn is next. His head drops. He asks how it came to this, and what he ever did to deserve a rope. Face in his arms, he begs nobody in particular. Please spare me. I'm sorry. A voice asks if he's okay. Happy is sitting right there, grinning at him. William lifts his head and gets out one word. Happy. Then he launches backwards off the floor. Happy face? When did you get here? 2 cells, 1 wall between them. Happy says he's been locked up next to him since yesterday. The kid laughs. William was busy talking to himself, so Happy just sat and watched. William asks if he was really that far gone. Then he spots the arrow shafts lying by Happy's feet. He scrambles closer and asks whether the arrows went in. Happy admits he took a couple. Happy holds 2 shafts up and grins. He faked being full of holes and lay down, so he's fine. William stands with his fist half raised. Unbelievable. Lucastian's words come back to him. Wrecked nerves, frozen muscles, a man who cannot show what he feels. William curls against the wall and asks if Happy is scared too. Happy says, of course, they're about to die. Then he says it while laughing his head off. William's eyes go flat and the laughing keeps going. He clamps a hand over his mouth. The words in the face do not match, and it is making him laugh. Happy asks if it's funny. William panics, waving both hands, insisting that is not what he meant at all. Happy tells him it's okay. Everyone reacts that way. William stares back at him, sweating through the silence. He rubs his ear and looks off to the side. From above, the 2 of them sit in separate cells. They are waiting for the noose, and his tension is gone. A knight marches down the corridor. Anyone with family may call them in to prove their innocence. William jerks up off the straw. Proven innocent means walking out alive. Happy sits by the wall, still smiling. Anyone who cannot prove where they came from goes to the gallows. 1 hour later, his parents come tearing down the corridor with his little sister, screaming his name. They pile onto him through the tears. His father asks how he got into this, and William apologizes. Happy watches the reunion through the bars of his cell. William catches him looking and stops mid-hug. He turns back around and says the name, Happy. A hand settles on a boy's head in the rain. Young William stands in the downpour with a book, his father's hand resting on his hair. The man tells him this is how people without families live. The boy looks up at his father in the rain. The man crouches down. Those people are slaves from birth, and their lives are decided before they start. The boy's eyes fill up with tears. Father. His father's stare goes hard. That is still no reason to be executed. Rain, the distant city, the whole memory. Grown William kneels on the prison floor and looks up. His father leans over him with his jaw set. He grabs his son and tells him to stop talking and follow. The mother and the sister are already moving. William glances back once. He has not changed since he was that boy in the rain. He has no power to act on his own will, and he knows how weak that makes him. His eyes squeeze shut against the torchlight. Happy grins at him from behind the bars. It's okay, he says. Then he takes hold of the bars alone, his back caked in blood. Days later, the captain watches from a window as William's family walks away up the cobbles. A young knight reports that everyone with proven innocence has gone home. The order is to send the rest to the gallows. The knight mentions one special case. He reads it off a slip. Lord Lucastian registered a contestant as a church member, and it cost an enormous donation. Church law says that man lives out his life as a slave for atonement. The king signed off on it. The captain turns and asks who it is. The knight says there is no name on record, only a contestant name, Happy Face. A red demon mask hangs behind the captain, and his jaw locks. So that is what Lucastian meant. Those last words in the arena play back for him. The captain stands in the archway. He cannot work out what happy is, that a man would burn his life to save him. 1 week later, at the slave market, a trader stares into a cage while somebody inside keeps giggling. Two of them talk it over. The new slave laughs non-stop, and nobody is going to buy that. They decide to let him starve. Even the church sold him for pocket change. A wooden cane taps down on the table. A voice says she would like to buy that child. The trader in the head wrap says there are no children here. Happy sits chained in the cage. She means the child crying so sadly over there. Happy's eyes snap wide open at that. An old woman leans on her cane and says she'll take him. In her eye, the reflection shows a boy with his mouth wide open. Someone finally sees him screaming. A hand reaches across the dinner table, past a green book and a candle. Grandmother brought home a slave. William freezes with his fingers at his collar. He wants to know why and whether the two of them are alone in that house right now. His grandfather answers between bites. The clinic keeps them waiting longer these days, and they are both getting old. William chews on it. The world is dangerous, and a slave is a hard thing to trust. His grandfather insists the child is young and kind. He makes up his mind. There is no work tomorrow, so he will go home himself. The farmhouse sits quiet in the evening light. He wants to look this person in the eye before he trusts anyone. Inside, grandmother hauls Happy through the doorway. She wants him scrubbed and out of those filthy rags. His stomach answers for him with a growl loud enough to stop her cold. Her whole face falls. She asks if those people never even bothered to feed him. Grandmother shoves him toward the bathroom and says she will get food on the fire. She lifts a pan and lays down the rule. Today is free because it's his first day, but from tomorrow, no work means no eating. Happy's eye stretches wide. Fighting? Grandmother stops mid-breath and squints at him sideways. She tells him not to say frightening things. He will wash dishes and haul firewood before winter. Happy drifts across the floorboards toward the far door. He stops in the bathroom doorway and grins. Grandmother tells him again to hurry up and wash. Bare feet thump across the wooden planks. One foot dips over the edge of the tub. Steam curls up and his reflection breaks apart on the surface. His eyes snap wide open. Nothing has ever felt this warm. Happy sits in the water with his scarred back turned. Warm water is a first for him. He comes up laughing, and 13 years of pain seem to lift straight off him. The clothes. Hands pull a belt tight over fresh green cloth. The food. 2 pots hang steaming over the cooking fire. The house. Grandmother sets a bowl down in front of him at the table. And the people. Her palm works ointment across his shoulder, and she mutters about how badly he must have been stabbed. Grandmother packs herbs over the wounds and promises they will heal soon. Happy tries to speak up. He calls her master. She corrects him on the spot. Just call her grandmother. He tests the word out loud. Grandmother. She looks up from the table and asks what he wants. Happy asks if he is allowed to go outside. The two of them sit there in total silence. Happy stands out in the yard in his new green clothes. His pupils shrink to dots and his eyes blow open. His fingers spread wide against the evening light. Back in a prison cell, a small boy stares up into the dark. The prison man tells him the world past those bars is bigger than he thinks. A scarred face, a calm voice. The sky and the land run on with no end. Happy stands under an open sunset. Freedom would mean walking anywhere he wanted. He turns and looks back at the farmhouse. Grandmother sits alone inside. If he wants to leave, he can go, and she is too old to chase him. Happy's eye wet in the last of the light. He walks back in through the door. Grandmother, he says, he has seen everything. His soles press down on the boards with each slow step. A toddler wobbles barefoot across a stone cell floor. The prison man lies stretched out, watching him come. He scoops the baby up off the ground. Dad. The scarred face breaks into a smile at that. Grandmother watches Happy from her chair. Happy lifts a plate with his eyes crushed shut from laughing. He starts work today, and he says he's fine now. Grandmother laughs right back at him. Night comes. Grandfather shoulders the door open and calls out to his old woman. Grandfather stops dead in the entryway with his mouth open. Happy stands in an apron holding a broom. Welcome home. Grandfather scratches at his ear. He was fairly certain a child was being brought in. Grandmother clamps onto Happy's arm. He is a child, so what exactly is the problem? Grandfather laughs it off. It will cause a scene when Winnie arrives tomorrow. Anyway, let's all get along. The three of them stand together in the lamplight. Happy says yes. Happy smiles quietly under the cloth cap. Through the window, the warm room holds all three of them. He sleeps grinning. That was the warmest day of Happy's whole life. Glass bursts inward and a rock drops through the shattered frame. Another window, the same night. William stares out at the moon. William is living the coldest day day of his life. His room is wrecked, hate notes cover the floor, and a dagger pins one to the desk. Within a week, the arena story has run through the whole school. The dormitory treats him as a criminal. Students mock him in the yard and tell him to go find his family tree in a pigsty. Nobody believes he didn't enjoy watching a royal die. A fist crumples the paper. His awards are confiscated and his church scholarship is cut off. With an expulsion hearing coming, the entire school turns its back. William walks the empty hall alone. William's face is drained and his eyes hold nothing. His father kneels on the floor in front of an official and begs for one more chance. He calls it his own failure as a father. William turns away with a tear running down his cheek. Boots hammer down the hallway carpet at a full sprint. He pounds on a door. The arena pass belongs to the senior, and William screams that none of it was him. He holds the pass up and swears he has never even laid eyes on a royal. The door swings open a crack, hinges creaking. The senior holds the pass up with a red slash across it. "Get lost, barbarian." William's face empties out. Nothing moves behind his eyes. Back in the dorm, the senior struts around, joking about the crazy guy trying to frame him. The others cackle along. William's fist closes tight on the wooden pass. He throws the punch straight at that smirking face. The hit lands, and the whole room blurs into speed lines. Students grab him from every side. This guy is trying to kill someone again. The senior smiles anyway. His expulsion is confirmed. William thrashes in their grip and spits his rage across the room. 4 of them wrestle him down. He screams that the senior is irredeemable trash. That night, the dormitory throws William out, and the ruling waits until morning. The arena pass lies abandoned on the ground. He cannot face his parents. William climbs into the empty mountains and wipes his eyes. He sobs into his sleeve. He tells his mom and dad he's sorry, that he has no idea what to do anymore. A voice asks if he's okay. Happy crouches in the grass with a basket and a red mushroom. William just stares, one hand frozen near his face. Happy explains that he woke up hungry and came out hunting a midnight snack. He offers to share. He holds the red mushroom out across the grass. "Here." William tells him it's poisonous. Happy drops it and says he almost died. Down in the bushes, other eyes are watching the 2 of them laugh. Bandits crouch in the leaves. One of them saw William come out of the university where only nobles study. Another nods along. The boy is noble blood, no doubt about it. They watch Happy scraping at the dirt and write him off as the village idiot every noble keeps around. The leader lifts his blade and grins. It's been a long time since they hauled in a good pile of gold. Happy and William walk the mountain path at night. William asks if that grandmother's house is really where he lives now. Happy points straight down the road and says yes. William wonders how a slave gets to wander around after dark. The rule is simple. Grandmother lets him out whenever it isn't work hours, and William decides she must be a good person. Happy laughs at that. A week ago, he was sure he was going to die. Then he asks William why he was crying out here in the grass earlier. William opens his mouth to answer. The 2 of them stand alone in the weeds. A sword tip drops into frame. A voice asks what a young noble is doing on a dangerous mountain path. William turns. A bearded man in red strolls toward them with the blade resting on his shoulder. More of them step out of the dark with axes raised. The whole crew has the 2 boys boxed in. William hisses at Happy to get down right now. Happy stays upright and blinks because William already hit the dirt face first. William holds out every coin he owns and begs the men to spare his life. The bandits crack up. This kid folded faster than they expected. Their leader claps his gloves together and compliments the speed of that decision. Then he leans in, grinning. Their real target is William's parents, and the boy is being kidnapped. The order comes to tie him up. Happy raises a finger and mentions that he isn't a noble at all. A hooded bandit clamps a hand on his shoulder and cackles right into his ear. The elbow comes back and caves the man's face in. The hood lands in the grass and stops moving. The axes swing around. Nobody saw a thing, only the legs lying in the weeds. One bandit shakes his partner and asks Yanma why he suddenly collapsed. Happy grins behind his back with the sweetest face in the world. The bandit spins, blade rising, and asks if this idiot did it. An open palm slides into view, fingers spread wide. The hand catches him flush in the skull, and his head snaps sideways. 2 of them lie in the grass now, both foaming at the mouth. The rest of the crew just stares. Not one of them says a word. Happy walks out of the dark toward them, still smiling. The leader screams at his men to kill him. The sword comes around in a flat, fast arc. The blade cuts empty air. Happy is not where he was standing. He drops low with one hand planted in the grass. The Axeman takes a shot to the jaw and lifts clean off his feet. Another body sprawls into the weeds under Happy's boots. The next one folds over a strike and drops next to his friends. An older bandit freezes with a question stuck on his face. Happy grabs the axe before it can come down. The kick lands flush and sends the man spinning through the air. The leader is on one knee now, sword shaking in his glove. His eyes finally show it. He picked the wrong kid tonight. Happy works through the last of them. One robber crawls away, begging. William watches from the side. That smile made him forget everything for a moment. Happy used to be an arena champion, and the arena never left him. The survivors scream and swing anyway, ready to drag him down with them. Happy turns around with blood on his cheek and beams like a kid at a fair. William stands with his arms crossed. Bare hands beat every armed robber in that group. Then it clicks for him. Bare hands also beat a royal knight in the arena. His eyes narrow as the math stops adding up. Paper sticks out from under one of the bodies. A wanted poster. The arrest notice lists a group of 5 wanted for murder and kidnapping. These guys tore their own posters off the village walls. William tells Happy that the men on the ground are exile clowns. Happy asks what that is supposed to mean. They are the biggest criminal ring in the whole kingdom. Their reach has crawled into the capital, so the king slapped a bounty on every exile clown alive. William reads the number twice. The payout is enormous. He crouches by the bodies. Hand these robbers to the authorities and the gold is theirs. He offers to come along so the payment actually lands. Happy repeats the word bounty like it is a foreign language. At the office, the clerk says a slave cannot receive a bounty payment. William almost comes over the desk. He tells the clerk that Happy is his friend and he will vouch for him. The clerk mouths the word friend. Status is status, and the clerk will not budge on it. William shrugs and files the claim under his own name instead. The receipt clears with William's name in the capturer line and restraint as the method. Out on the street, he presses the coin pouch into Happy's palm. Buy food at the market, he says, and stop foraging mushrooms in the dark. Happy thanks him. Then Happy admits he has no idea how shopping actually works. William rubs his face and offers to take him next time and teach him everything. Happy lights up and says that would be great. The two talk for a while. This is Happy's first time outside the arena, and every ordinary thing fascinates him. William points out his own house and tells Happy to come find him again. They wave goodbye in the middle of the street. William watches the kid disappear down the street. He heads home alone through the quiet town. He sighs. The verdict comes tomorrow morning. William stands alone in the center of the courtroom. His parents grip the rail. They were told that nobody was even injured. The senior sits up with the nobles, head wrapped in a bandage. The head judge rises and calls William forward. After a fair trial, he will now deliver the verdict. William bows his head and waits for it. William assaulted a fellow student after the arena incident, and he deserves punishment for it. Then the judge adds a single word. However, for helping take down part of the exile clowns, the ring kidnapping and killing nobles, William gets a Medal of Honor. The pin goes on his chest while he stands there stunned. His parents freeze. His mother whispers his name across the gallery. The senior's jaw drops open in the front row. The judge finishes. By the king's order, the crimes are forgiven and the boy gets another chance. The gallery erupts. Everybody wants to know how this happened. The senior decides money did it. Rich parents bought a commoner's kid the top seat at the university. William's mother cries into her hands while his father holds her shoulder. The senior peels his bandage off. He wanted the boy gone quietly, and instead the boy walked out with a medal. Rewind to the night before, hours before Happy ever met William. Happy lies curled up on the floorboards, unable to sleep. Pain stabs through every organ he has, over and over, and will not let go. Hours pass and it never fades. He has to find out what is wrong with him. He decides he must be hungry and goes looking for a snack. Hunger was never the problem. His body spent a lifetime in the arena and peace was making it sick. One night of violence fixed it. He wakes up on the bed and beams at the ceiling. He has not slept this well since the day he left the arena. A voice calls in from the yard. "Grandmother, I'm back." Outside, a young woman throws her arms around grandmother and says she missed her. Grandfather jerks his thumb at the house. The new kid is in there. The granddaughter says she bought a gift for the little one at the market. The house is strange to him, so she wants his first memories here to be good ones. The little one steps out of the doorway. He is a grown man with a smile that stretches ear to ear. The little wooden bird hits the dirt at her feet. A little bird folded out of straw sits in the dirt by the fence. Winnie picks it up and wonders out loud who made this thing. Grandfather nods at her and she covers her mouth. The new kid did it. The kid himself waves with a giant grin and tells her his name is Happy. The farm sits quiet in the sun and Winnie is already suspicious. At the table, she tells Grandfather that Happy is no little child and a guy from the arena is scary. Grandfather only smiles and says they should watch him a little longer. He has seen just a bit of Happy so far and the boy seems like a good person. Grandfather is glad Grandmother can smile like that again. Winnie glares out the window. Outside, Happy laughs next to Grandmother while she beams up at him. Grandfather calls him the brightest person he has met in years, and a great worker too. Happy hauls a barrel over his head and asks Grandmother where to put it. Grandmother says the storage room is finally getting sorted. Her back hurt too much to do it herself. Winnie watches all of this and goes, Behind the house, a log waits on the stump with the axe leaning next to it. Winnie grabs the axe and mutters she could have done all this without a slave. The first log splits clean apart in the air. She keeps swinging, chopping piece after piece by the wall. Happy strolls past the well with 2 full buckets on a yoke. Winnie stops, wipes her forehead, and asks if he fetched the water. Happy beams and says the bath water is already prepared. She tells him to rest because she will chop all the firewood herself. Happy nods, says okay, and leaves the axe to her. He sets the buckets down in the grass. Then he drops onto the ground and sits there, smiling at her. Winnie sweats. She asks why he is still watching her. Happy says he wants to watch and learn, since chopping is his job from now on. Winnie decides that is a good attitude and picks the axe back up. Her hands lock around the handle. She tells him to watch and learn well. She lifts the blade over her head with her eyes wide open. The axe comes down and the log bursts apart. Chips fly across the yard while Happy watches from behind. She keeps splitting logs and he keeps staring. Winnie yells that a fire needs small pieces like this and asks if he understands. Happy goes, "Oh," and Winnie hauls the axe up again. A thick plank splits in half with one hit. She turns around, grinning like a proud teacher. Happy stares back at her with the biggest smile of the day. Winnie points at the pile and asks if he saw that. He shouts yes twice. Grandfather watches the two of them from the yard while Happy claps for her. He thinks that whatever Winnie says out loud, she is getting along just fine. The next morning, Grandmother tells Winnie she does not need to chop firewood. Winnie freezes over the stump and asks if what she cut is not enough. Grandmother says Happy chopped it all last night. There is plenty stacked in the back. Winnie turns and sees the mountain of firewood piled against the house. She marches over and asks why he said he wanted to watch and learn. Happy explains that he chopped for the first time yesterday and his shoulders ached, so he wanted to see the proper form. Winnie loses it. Shoulders hurt when you chop that much, and he should have told her before she wasted her whole day. She screams across the whole farm asking why he keeps smiling and if he is mocking her. Grandmother hugs Happy and thanks him for working so hard. Winnie folds her arms and humps. The sky turns orange over the fields. Inside, the house sits warm and quiet. A candle burns next to a folded towel by the bath. Winnie sinks into the water and admits one more person in the house is nice. With no chores left, the whole place feels comfortable. She towels her hair off, and through the window, Happy walks by outside. Winnie sighs and says she is finally all dried off. Then she stops at the glass with a question mark over her head. Happy is heading out through the gate with a basket on his back. It will be dark soon. Winnie wants to know where he is going. In her nightgown, she asks Grandmother if Happy left without saying anything. Grandmother says she told him to live freely outside of work hours. She thinks he went out the night before too. Grandfather goes, "Oh, is that so?" Winnie stares into the dark and asks what business he has at this hour. Happy tightens the straps of the basket on his shoulders. A fist knocks on a wooden door in town. Happy grins and calls out for William. The door creaks open and a small face peeks through the gap. A little girl asks who is out there. William hugs Ellie and tells her to go back inside, then says he is heading out for a bit. Ellie squirms under his hands and demands to know where he is going. William raises a finger and swears he is going to the library. Ellie asks if that brother outside is a library friend. William says yes, that is right. From the gate, she waves and tells them to be careful and come back safely. William laughs that he did not expect Happy to show up this fast. Happy asks if it is really okay for him to come out. William tells him that of course it is fine. He owes Happy his life, so anything works. Happy just goes, huh? William says he will explain on the way and asks if they are heading to the market. Happy pulls out a stack of papers. An arrest notice for a criminal called the Iron Giant, wanted for a prison break and murder. William's eyes go wide at the drawing on the page. He realizes the whole bundle is wanted posters. Happy wants to fight guys like these again. again, but he cannot read well. He cannot make out the location names, so he asks for help and offers to split the money. William asks if he means bounty hunting. William wants to repay the guy who saved him, and the way Happy fights pulls him in. Happy needs fights to kill the pain that hits him at night, and a bounty is a legal way to get one. From then on, the two of them meet every night to hunt bounties. In the night market, William says he researched until morning and knows where to check. At the board, he grabs a few of the fresh wanted posters. Back home, the suspicions grow. A man at the table asks if he is off to the library again. Ellie bursts into tears because he never plays with her anymore. William shouts that he will be back. William looks over his shoulder and neither of them says a word. Meanwhile, on the farm, the straw bird and a spoon sit on the windowsill. Winnie sneaks into the storage room at night and finds a bundle on the floor. A pouch spills open and coins scatter across the boards. She holds one up and asks what on earth he does every night. In a cave far away, chests sit stuffed with gold and heavy sacks. A huge knight in scratched armor stands over the treasure with a shield in hand. Soldiers lie dead around him, their swords dropped in the dirt. The giant thinks there are too many guards these days because of the exile clowns. Soldiers used to ignore him when they spotted him, and now the kingdom feels different. With bounties on offer, even flies are gathering. He stares at his own wanted poster. A voice goes, ahem. Happy lowers a poster away from his face. William screams that he actually found the guy, and the Iron Giant turns around. William freezes in the dark woods, and every instinct tells him this is wrong. A bloody mace drips in front of him while dead hunters lie in the dirt. He picked the lowest bounty on the board and got a monster instead. The Iron Giant raises his shield and says they wandered into the wrong hunt. He tells them to leave quietly. He holds up his own wanted poster and calls the bounty a formality after the recent exile clown mess. William sweats through his collar because a formality means nobody ever managed to arrest this man. Nobody caught him. The corpses scattered around the clearing explain why. William lifts one palm, nods along politely, and starts backing out of there. A question mark pops over his head. Behind him, someone is already moving. Happy launches himself at the giant with a grin and two empty hands. His kick cracks against the helmet and sparks burst off the steel. The landing goes badly. Happy hits the dirt while the giant barely shifts his shield. The giant admits he never expected anyone to charge in with bare hands. He heard the sound of that impact and figures the knee is completely shattered. Happy bounces straight back up, howling about his limp, dragging the leg like a terrible actor. William screams his name. The panic hits all at once. He grabs at his friend and begs him to run while they still can. The giant answers that it is already too late. The shield comes around in one wide arc. The giant says Happy should have left when mercy was offered. The mace catches him in the air and folds him sideways. Blood sprays across the plating and paints the giant's gauntlet. The shield drives Happy face first into the ground. He lies there bleeding while the weapon lifts again. Red swallows the whole frame as the weapon comes down again. The clearing goes still. The giant stands over a broken body and William watches from the trees. William screams. His whole face falls apart. Happy lies face down in the dirt and the mace rises for a finishing swing. William throws himself between them with both arms spread and shouts at the giant to stop. He plants his feet over his friend and refuses to move. Happy lifts his head off the ground, confused. William tells him the arena fights never looked cruel to him. They looked cool. He always believed Happy would win, and that belief kept bringing him back to watch. Catching the exile clowns got William back into school, which is why he helped when Happy asked for a fight. Out here, that belief means nothing. Tears run off his chin and drop into the mud. He wanted to watch matches, not push a friend toward death. He apologizes for never checking who the target really was. The giant raises the mace behind him anyway. A hand snaps out and yanks William clear of the swing. Happy holds him up, grinning, and calls him the kid who first wandered into his arena. Then Happy tells him the whole beating was an act. His leg fires up and kicks the mace arm off target. The giant grunts and staggers backward. He asks how a shattered body is still moving. Steel rattles against the scratched shield. Happy says William's name while holding the giant's mace in one hand. He starts talking about his former master, Lucastian, and that man's obsession with strength. Every win brought stronger opponents in from across the world. Happy finished fights too fast, the arena lost money, and the master got angrier every time. So he learned to fake a struggle and stretch the matches out for the paying crowd. The mace drives him down while he reads the giant and pretends to be losing. Chips of stone scatter across the dirt. The shield pins his head against the ground. Happy pops up again, arm flapping, selling the injury for an audience of one. His glove opens and lets the mace slip free. The weapon spins away through the dark. It bounces off the ground with a flat clang. It skids to a stop against the giant's boot. Happy waves at him with a bright, innocent smile. The Iron Giant drops to one knee, breathing hard inside the helmet. Happy leans in and says he never once fought because he liked it. In a red memory, he sits roped to a chair while a man with a hammer works on him. He fought or he died. The habit sank too deep into his body, and it comes back the same way outside the arena. His eye locks on the giant. That is the only reason he fights. The giant slams the shield edge down at him. The blow lands, and Happy takes it across his forearms. The giant tells him he will never scratch this armor fighting like that. The shield swings again, and Happy slides under it. The mace cracks the ground where his head just was. The giant stops. His breathing has gone ragged. Happy is grinning up at him from under the swing. The giant cannot square this with a man who was dying a minute ago. Nothing about the kid looks desperate anymore. He looks relaxed. A gloved fist comes up fast, right through the giant's guard. Happy's eyes stretch wide, and his grin gets worse. The punch lands on the helmet with a heavy thud. The shield rim scrapes across the dirt. They collide again, and the giant chokes on the impact. The shield sweeps low, and Happy drops beneath it. The hooked edge whips past, close enough to shave him. Happy grabs the mace shaft with both gloves. He clamps onto the handle and refuses to let go. His eye narrows. That armor still will not break. Both of his fists tighten around the metal handle. The giant roars and tries to shake him loose. They crash together, and the shield rams into his chest. Another swing whips past his head and finds nothing. The giant snarls a curse through the helmet. The shield slams Happy backward across the clearing. Happy hooks an arm around the helmet and drags the head down. His knee fires up, and the giant leaves his feet. Happy grins while the shield comes back around. It hammers him into the ground over and over. The giant leans his entire weight behind it. A gloved hand grips the shield edge. Happy rams his elbow under the helmet, and the giant gags. Blood runs down the giant's chin inside the helmet. His fist closes tight around the mace handle. One more impact rocks both fighters where they stand. The giant's face is split open and his breathing is shredded. Happy laughs and tells him he has collected a lot of scratches. Blood covers half the man's face now. His gauntlet trembles when he lifts it. Happy hops back out of range as the shield sweeps past. The Iron Giant hunches over the shield and just breathes. Happy straightens up, still smiling, barely winded. From behind a rock, William notices both of them have stopped attacking. The armor that looked untouchable is now draining the man wearing it. Happy's damage still looks thin compared to how hard he swings. William wonders if the giant's size and steel put a ceiling on it. The shield crashes down into the dirt and stays planted. Behind it, the giant tells himself he only has to stay standing. His face is a wreck, and he knows Happy keeps aiming at the one spot with no armor because it is the only place he can do damage. Happy goes quiet. Behind the rock, William mutters that running away might be the smart move after all. Happy turns and calls out across the clearing to him. He thanks William for stepping in earlier and tells him never to do it again. He turns around grinning and says William is the only person who ever called him a friend. Getting him hurt would make Happy sad. William stares back and says nothing at all. Happy walks straight at the giant and promises to erase any doubt about who wins here. His glove closes around a broken shard of metal in the dirt. The giant just stares back at him, completely lost. Happy lifts the shard and tells him it is time to see his full power. The Iron Giant looks down at the broken spear shaft and asks if that is really the plan. Dead hunters and snapped weapons cover the clearing. Every blade here shattered against his armor and shield, and he says so out loud. He leans in and asks how a busted shaft is supposed to pierce him. Happy turns the jagged tip in his fingers and studies the edge. He winds his arm back over his shoulder, still grinning. Happy launches forward and drives the point straight at the shield. The giant's eyes go wide behind the visor. The tip cracks against the steel plating and sparks fly off the rim. The giant clicks his tongue and starts asking what he is even doing. His eye locks on empty air because the kid is already gone. Dirt bursts upward as Happy cuts low across the ground. He slides under the shield rim and comes up right at the giant's boots. The giant jerks back and cannot follow the movement. Happy is already inside his guard, and the man stammers out a question. Happy presses right against his chest, closer than the mace or the shield can reach. Blood runs down the giant's cracked face. A dark glove closes over his jaw under the helmet. The shield slams into the dirt and the mace drops beside his feet. Happy digs his fingers in and the giant screams. The glove crushes into the eye socket while the eyeball bulges wide. Happy tells him the more he moves, the deeper the pain goes. The giant's breath comes out in ragged huffs. His teeth grind against the pressure. 2 words come out of the dark: give up. The armored arm trembles under Happy's grip. His gauntlet claws weakly at the green sleeve. The fingers loosen and the whole arm goes slack. The giant tips over sideways inside his own steel. He hits the dirt and stays down while Happy stands over him. Behind the rocks, William says this defies common sense, and he wonders if he just watched Happy's full power. Blood drips off Happy's hand into the dust. Happy turns around wearing the same smile. William swallows hard and keeps very still. Happy's eyes lock onto him without a word. Turns out the giant is not dead, only knocked out by the pain. William squeaks out a confused "huh." Happy looks across the bodies and calls it a poor match. He mentions that his former master hated fights like this one. William insists the match was amazing and points out they caught a dangerous criminal. He throws up a thumbs up and says he trusts Happy completely now. Happy beams back at him and agrees on the spot. William asks if they are done, and Happy crouches beside the basket. Instead of packing up, Happy lies down in the grass. William asks if he means right here. Happy admits he was sleepy during the entire fight and asks William to handle the cleanup. William stares down at him with nothing to say. Our guy really is asleep, curled up next to the ropes. William looks at the armored body and wonders if he should walk away and report it. His head snaps toward the dirt beside the shield. The broken spear tip is lying there in the open. William picks it up and turns it over in his fingers. The shaft was only a distraction, so he asks himself what Happy actually stabbed the giant with. He wonders whether a hidden weapon is still buried in that body. No answer comes, so William decides to check the man himself. He grabs the shoulder plate and heaves with everything he has. He quits fast, because the armor weighs a ton, and he cannot imagine how Happy lifted this guy at all. William decides to hurry and report the whole thing. Torches come out of the trees. A full column of knights is standing there watching him. William freezes with the bloody tip still in his hand. The helmets stare back at him and say nothing. Their captain raises an eyebrow at the scene. The giant's gauntlet lies open on the ground. The captain's eyes narrow at everything in front of him. The blade glints red in William's fist. A soldier grabs the giant's head and shouts that William caught the wanted criminal. William has no clue what is happening. The soldier survived the earlier slaughter, escaped, and ran for reinforcements. On the way, he spotted William walking into the forest with a wanted poster. He lifts the head higher and calls William a real bounty hunter. Asked for a name, William gives it and tries to explain the situation. The knights recognize him as the university student who caught the exile clown group. They talk over each other about a student winning with a broken spear shaft. The soldier grins and mentions the rumors going around the Knight Order. Word is spreading about a student who hunts bounties as a hobby. William sweats through every word of it. The soldier tells him to leave the scene and the bounty paperwork to them. William thanks him and a knight offers to walk him to the forest edge. The captain notices that the porter got caught in the fight too. Another knight asks what is wrong because the captain is staring at the spear tip. The captain points out that the edge carries no blood, only splatter. Every weapon in the clearing is the same. Nothing here stabbed the giant. The other knight asks what the man was stabbed with then. Happy's bloody hand hangs limp over William's shoulder. William carries him out while a knight walks beside them. He says the porter is only sleeping. The captain watches them go and calls William full of inconsistencies. That name just landed in the wrong head. Deep in a stone hideout, wounded men kneel in the torchlight. One of them trembles on his knees in front of the leader. The clown leader says they were abandoned and mocked once already. He grabs the kneeling man's face and blames him for bowing to noble arrogance and losing to a mere student. The kneeling man stammers out an apology. The leader drives a blade into him and blood hits the floor. The dagger comes away red and drips onto the stone. He reminds the room they are not common bandits. The exile clowns fight the kingdom until death, and every eye in the hall glows back at him. The leader asks a woman whether she found out who that guy is. She pulled the bounty hunter list and came back with a name: William. She calls him skilled, a man who hunts bounties for fun. The leader makes him the next target. Blood spreads through the shallow water by the wall. In a mansion, a noble sips his tea and asks which family the student belongs to. His son snaps that the guy has no family name, only parents with business money, and he calls the bounty hunting faked paperwork. The father listens and asks if that is really so. He slides a document across and tells his son to show William what shame costs. The paper names the Brigands Covenant, an outfit that takes requests on advance payment. The father calls it the armed group the family uses for contract killings. He was saving that news for after university, but early works too. He tells his son to send them to the address below and take care of William, then he goes bait. A calm morning sky sits over the kingdom, and nothing looks wrong yet. A woman walks the market street with a basket of vegetables on her hip. She stops dead and stares at the ground. 3 corpses lie on the stone steps in front of her, and her scream tears through the whole street. Out past the fields, a cart rolls up to a burial ground. The gravedigger says 3 bodies turned up on the kingdom's streets this morning. Cigar hauls one off the cart and asks if the case is already closed, because every mark on it points to murder. The old man starts sweating and says his name like a warning. He reminds Cigar that his reporting habit almost put them both in prison after the arena incident. The dead men are exiled clowns, so nobody bothered to investigate. In this kingdom, people would clap if those guys died. Cigar says nothing and keeps working the shovel. One more detail bothers him, and he says it out loud. The corpse carries bruise marks that formed a few days before death. They match the arena corpses Cigar has been burying lately. The pit below the 2 men is already packed with bodies and broken blades. Winnie waves from the fence and calls out to Shovel Grandpa. She brought every herb he asked for and heads inside to drop the bundle off. The old man asks if that old woman is still full of energy, and Winnie says her grandfather has not changed either. He grumbles that the old woman has 0 worries and will outlive him. Winnie greets Cigar, who sits on a crate by the shed. He turns and answers her hello, no smile on him. She brought herbs for him too and lays them on the wood. Winnie asks why and whether he dislikes the gift. Cigar tells her he is always grateful and thanks her properly. The gravedigger says she is too kind and should be selling those herbs for money. Winnie smiles and says the guy works hard for Shovel Grandpa, so she takes care of him too. She points out that the last assistants quit inside a week, while Cigar has stayed over a month. The old man admits the guy works well, then complains that he wanders off every night. Winnie's face falls at that. The gravedigger asks her what is wrong. She says her own house has the same problem. The old man's voice cracks because her grandmother brought a slave home. Winnie admits it, then says the guy slips out at night and hides fat money pouches under his blanket. Cigar leans in, and the arena part is what bothers him most. He wonders out loud whether the guy is doing dirty work in the dark. The city had exactly 1 arena and it disappeared not long ago. Every contestant in it was executed. Winnie freezes because the slave in her house is definitely an arena fighter. Cigar says those contestants were prisoners and vicious criminals. A survivor with no status and no family must have had backing. He means backing that even the king's orders could not touch. Cigar warns her that the grandmother may have taken in a dangerous person, and he offers to check the slave papers. Winnie asks him to do exactly that, and he promises to dig tonight and visit tomorrow. She walks back across the sand while both men watch her go. The gravedigger tells Cigar he will die soon. Keep stirring everything up, and a blade finds you before the truth does. Cigar answers that he only wants good people to stay in this world a little longer. His fingers close around the herb she left him. He says he truly means it, and a small white flower sits in the bundle. Night falls, and William carries a sleeping Happy across the fields on his back. Happy is out cold with his mouth open and drool running down his chin. William says the kid went several nights without sleep, and now nothing wakes him. The farmhouse window glows ahead, and he walks straight for the door. The family opens up, and William greets them with Happy hanging off his back. The grandmother panics at the sight of the limp body. The whole house crowds around, and William swears the kid is only sleeping. The fire crackles in the hearth. At the table, they ask whether the 2 of them have been bounty hunting every single night. William says yes and starts from the beginning. Happy sleeps through the entire confession. William tells them Happy spent his whole life in the arena and has a facial nerve disorder. He tells them about the pain that kept the kid awake and left him no option but to fight. Like a model student, William lays out every circumstance around Happy in perfect order. The grandmother starts crying halfway through the story. The grandfather says nothing at all. Winifred feels her suspicion drain away. William ends by calling Happy his lifesaver. He says goodbye politely and walks home through the dark. The slave papers sit on the table while the fire burns low. By morning, the hearth is cold and empty. The sun comes up over the farm. Happy wakes up wearing the widest grin in the kingdom. His eyes go huge and bright. Winnie stands over the bed and looks down at him. She asks why he never told them he was working with no sleep and pain nobody could explain. Happy just grins back at her. Winnie asks why he never explained his face, because the whole family read him wrong. Happy says useless people get thrown away, because that is what the arena did to them. She calls him silly, and says her family never saw him as just a slave. Her grandmother already counts him as family, and a carved wooden duck sits by his pillow. Winnie promises to cure him, and she orders him to quit fighting for good. She did not become an herbalist for nothing. Her hand settles on his cheek, and she tells him to trust her. Happy sits up, takes her hand, and agrees on the spot. Then his grin stretches wider, and he grabs at her fingers. He bought this with his first bounty payment, and Winnie asks what it even is. She leans in for a closer look. Happy slides a ring onto her finger. Winnie yelps and asks what he thinks he is doing. He tilts his head and asks why. She shrieks that the thing on her hand is a wedding ring. Happy laughs and asks what a wedding ring is. The grandfather walks in with a pouch William dropped off, the bounty money. Happy tells him to take all of it because he is done fighting and the family says they can cure him. The old man grabs him in a hug and calls him their grandson and their lucky charm. The grandmother says grandfather will put that money to good use, and Winnie is clearly not amused. Winnie watches the whole circus from the side. The grandmother clasps her hands in the doorway. Winnie's expression goes completely flat. She finally gets why her grandmother called Happy a child on the day she brought him in. He hands out rings to the grandparents too because our guy bought a gift for everyone. The next morning a note reaches Cigar. The misunderstanding is cleared up and he can drop the whole thing. Cigar reads the paper and answers with silence. Across town, a senior student begs William to at least let him pay for a meal. William asks if they are not worse than strangers now and tells him to go his own way. The senior drops to his knees in the dirt and sobs out an apology, begging for one chance. William stares down at him. He tells him to get up, skip the meal, and just talk for a moment. The two of them walk off together while Cigar watches from the wooden platform. Cigar watches them go and calls it pathetic acting. Behind William's back, the senior wipes his face and curses him under his breath. That apology was pure theater, and William just agreed to walk beside him. The senior walks beside William and swears his apology is real this time. Then his hand shoots out and shoves William straight off the walkway. William slams into the stone below, face first. His body keeps rolling and lands flat in the dirt. Four rough men scoop him up before he can even sit. He thrashes in their grip and asks who they are. Down in the empty street, the senior watches from the stairs. A fist cracks into William's jaw and the whole street goes white. His hand lies open on the ground, smeared with dirt and blood. He coughs, and one side of his face is already swollen shut. The senior grabs his collar and says he never liked him from the start. William asks what he ever did wrong and why the hate runs this deep. The answer is a punch. He screams that William never knew his place and always tried to climb. He asks if being good at studying was supposed to earn respect. There is none of that here, he says, and William should have been born with power and a good family. Then he asks whether the whole school hates William too. William sits alone at a desk with a pen, and the classroom behind him is a wall of glaring faces. Once people hear he is dead, the senior says they will all be relieved. The senior works the spit up in his mouth, taking his time. He fires it across William's face and tells him to learn to grovel in his next life. Papers and crates lie scattered across the warehouse floor. William slumps against the wall with nothing left to say. The senior tells the men to finish him and come out because he will be waiting outside. He walks out through the arched wooden door. Outside, his eyes go blank and sweat runs down his jaw. His fist clamps around the blade he carries. The grip goes white and he tells himself this is nothing. Power and authority work this way, he decides. So it is only natural. Up on a roof, a bounty hunter lies flat and watches the senior walk off. The hunter recognizes brigand mercenaries, the kind who only take assassination jobs. A beating just turned into a paid kill, and he mutters that noble methods never change. A long sigh escapes into his glove. He always figured he would hunt brigands one day. He drops into a crouch with a knife out, and today turns out to be the day. His boot lands hard on a wooden beam. He stops dead, and his eye snaps toward the rooftops. A blur tears across the tiles and dives at the building. The hunter cannot believe it. Whoever that was slipped inside in a single breath. Inside, a mercenary looks down at William and calls the amazing bounty hunter just a kid. He sounds disappointed. Their employer wants this painful, so they plan to take their time. William thinks about how hard he worked to get here. He clawed his way up from nothing, and now none of it counts. Dying because a noble was in a bad mood is the part he cannot accept. He stops trying to stand and starts sobbing, and the mercenary tells him to fight once before he dies. This was never the ending he wanted. He dreamed of becoming a man who changed things. It turns out change needs status, and he has none. A pale figure sits in the ash with both hands clamped over its mouth. William begs it to stop looking at him. A woman drops into the middle of the room and asks if he is William. The mercenaries spin around and demand to know where she came from. She smacks him across the cheek to snap him awake. She doubts a boy like him took down 5 of her exile clowns. 2 people were seen at the scene, and William lifts 2 shaking fingers to her face. She crouches with her blade and asks who the other man was. A mercenary raises his sword behind her. The men call her a sewer rat and promise to open her throat if she does not leave. She moves, and the room turns into black ink and blood. Heads leave their shoulders in one pass, and blood sprays the wall. William sits in the middle of it while the heads drop around him. She looks down at one and calls him cute. If he still had a neck, she would collar him and take him home. Her head tilts because a sound came from the crates. The hunter presses himself flat behind the boxes. She hums to herself and decides the noise was nothing worth chasing. Now that the room is quiet, she asks William to continue their talk. Behind the crates, the hunter wonders if she runs the exile clowns. He also wonders who William is, since the nobles and the underworld both want him dead. Whatever the reason, this sits far above his level, and he decides to back off. She pins William down and presses a finger to his lips, asking who was with him that day. The curved blade settles against his throat and she tells him to hurry, otherwise the blade takes his neck. Red light falls across her eyes. William remembers Happy thanking him for stepping in and asking him never to do it again. Happy grinned and told him he was the only one who ever called him a friend, and that seeing him hurt would make him sad. William screams the words happy face through his tears. Then he gives him up. Happy is a former arena slave. Behind the crates, the hunter catches the last piece. The kid lives on a farm. Out on that farm, Happy sits by the fence and decides to go tell William he is quitting bounty hunting. He holds up a straw doll he made as a present for his friend William. The woman leans over William and calls him a weakling not even worth killing. His face is swollen into the dirt and he asks her what that means. Her clan wipes out the entire bloodline whenever they take revenge. Just in case, she says she split off from the rest of her crew. Her boss went to his house instead, where his family is laying out bread and stew. She picks up her sword and says she should go meet that Happy guy now. William stretches a hand after her and begs her to wait. She is already at the door. His fingers hang in the air with nothing to grab. He curls up on the warehouse floor alone with the corpses. Moments ago, he told her to stop stalling and just kill him. He remembers Happy hauling him around by the arm while he kept refusing to come along. Now there are only heads and hands on the ground and nothing he managed to protect. He presses his forehead to the stone. He shut his eyes and turned away every single time. His fist clamps shut. A sword lies on the floor right in front of him. He tells himself he needs to change. He drags his shoulders off the ground and pushes onto one knee. Blood runs down his cheek and his teeth grind together. He stands up holding the blade and decides the change happens now. Outside, the senior whines about how long this is taking and asks why the door was left open. Then he looks up and his face goes stiff. William steps into the street covered in blood, eyes completely empty. The senior stares at him with no idea what he is seeing. He scrambles backward with a scream and tips right off the step. William just stands in the doorway. His cloak flaps over the stone edge as he goes over. He lands upside down on the pavement with his legs in the air. A groan leaks out of him while his cheek scrapes the ground. Boots crunch to a stop beside his head. His one visible eye rolls upward in raw panic. William looms over him with the sword, and the senior blurts an apology. He cannot believe the guy he bullied can actually fight. He shoves his face into the dirt, offers to become a dog, and begs to be spared. That escalated fast. William looks down and tells him to get lost. The senior grabs at his boot with a squeal. Then he curls into a shaking ball with both hands over his skull. His eyes drift up and lock on something behind William. His father is standing in the street asking what this is and saying he came to check on things. William keeps walking straight at him. The old noble watches him come and says nothing. William tells him not to block his way and to get lost. The father's mouth stays shut and his jaw goes tight. Sweat crawls down along his heavy cheek. His red boots slide backward and clear the path. William walks off. The senior stays on his knees behind him. He glances back at both of them and lets out one dry laugh. He hates that the men who ignored him fold this fast in front of a blade. He wanted to earn that with a pen. His grip tightens on the hilt because the pen was never going to be enough. Across town, William's family stares at the stranger filling their doorway. Happy grins with his hand up and introduces himself. The house sits quiet under the afternoon sun. At the table, the mother ladles out stew and admits she never believed William was a bounty hunter. The father laughs and says a reliable friend like this was clearly helping. The little sister sulks because her brother only hangs around this guy now. Happy announces he has decided to quit bounty hunting for good. The sister lights up and asks if he really means it. She hums and says maybe she can reconsider her brother after all. The mother approves, since bounty hunting among students is far too dangerous. The father says anyone can tell Happy comes from a noble house, sharp at books and at fighting. Happy laughs and tells them he is a slave. The bowls sit there steaming. Nobody at the table says another word. The father says a slave could never attend the same university. Happy explains that he never attended anything and that William helped him because he cannot read. The mother goes still and the father's hand flattens on the wood. The father repeats that one word, slave. He asks whether a slave now wants to eat at his table and whether his master's house forgot to educate him. The room drops into shadow around 4 people and 2 untouched bowls. The father orders him to disappear quietly and never get involved with William again. Happy hugs his own arm and drops his head. The mother pushes back, calling him the person who helped their son. The father lifts one finger and says a benefactor only exists between people. A slave is just a slave, he says, while the mother drags the little sister away. Out in the hallway, the girl hears knocking at the front door. She wanders toward it while the shouting keeps going behind her. She cracks the door open and asks who is out there. A shadow answers that someone came to see William and asks if he is inside. She says her brother stepped out and the shadow asks what her relationship to him is. Then she screams for her mother and the whole table turns. Whoever is at that door came hunting William and the only fighter in the house is an unarmed slave. 2 men stand outside the house and the partner says they will lure William to their base if he is not home. He leans down and tells the swordsman to kill the parents and leave a message written in blood. The partner holds the little sister up by her face and says William should reach the sewers before she rots. The girl hangs there crying with her cheek squeezed between his fingers. She screams for her mother while the swordsman walks toward the front door. Inside, the mother jumps up from the table and shouts her daughter's name. She bolts for the hallway and the father shoves his chair back to follow. His eye snaps sideways toward the open entrance. Happy stays in his seat and grins in the dark. The swordsman is already inside, cutting at the mother. The father screams at him to hold on. The swordsman tells them to stay still, since he will kill them quickly and finish the rest after. The father freezes with both hands up and sweat running down his jaw. Across the room, Happy sits at the table with his head bowed. Then Happy lifts his face and smiles. The father snaps and yells that this was all Happy's doing because he had been grinning the whole time. A hand tips the bowl of stew off the table. The bowl flies across the room and smacks the swordsman in the face. Happy is already airborne. The swordsman stumbles back, wiping stew out of his eyes while the father stares. The swordsman reminds himself to take care of the wife first. He looks at the man in green and wonders if that guy is William. The girl at the door told him William had gone out. Their boss warned him about 2 people at the scene, so a variable exists. The order keeps repeating in his head. The wife comes first. From the way this guy talks, he does not sound like William at all. Then the man standing in the kitchen has to be the variable. The swordsman lifts his bloodied blade and asks if Happy is the one who hunted them. Happy just smiles as the edge swings past his cheek. The swordsman roars and demands to know where he thinks he is going. The blade cuts empty air and the swordsman's eyes go wide. The counter lands and his head snaps straight back. Happy's fist hangs beside his jaw while his teeth clench. He gets thrown backward across the floor. He tells himself that dropping his guard here means real trouble. His hand closes on a second hilt hidden under the cloak. He draws both blades and cuts, and Happy flips clean over the swing. The swordsman cannot believe this guy guarded the hidden weapon and dodged the follow-up. He feels like Happy reads everything about him and swallows it whole. He tells himself to stay calm and drag the fight back into his own pace. The 2 blades cross and start turning in his hands. They keep spinning until the steel blurs. The swordsman becomes a whirlwind of edges. His eye burns. He never wanted his full power in a kitchen, but he cannot afford to lose. The blades scream around him. Happy just stands there and watches. Happy names it out loud. Sword dance. The swordsman locks up in the middle of his spin. His grip clamps down and the world dies instantly. He demands to know how Happy knows that name. Happy laughs and says he knows someone who uses it. The swordsman raises both blades and says that person was a clumsy copycat while he trained in the land where sword dance was born. Happy says the arena grandfather founded it. Happy only grins wider at the doubt. The swordsman has no clue what he is talking about. Happy explains that the old man's technique was called the peak of swordsmanship, and rumors made him a legend. Lucastian could not stand that, so he dragged the legend into the arena in chains. The swordsman snaps and asks what nonsense he is babbling about now. Still, the story sounds too real to be invented. Happy tilts his head and asks when the attacking is finally going to start. The swordsman howls that he was already attacking and only paused for the babbling. He shouts that Happy knows nothing, then wraps him in a cage of blades and promises a slow death. Happy closes his eyes and smiles at the offer. He says the swordsman learned it incompletely, and his empty hands begin to move. The mirror throws the same shape right back. Happy copies every motion down to the inch, with no weapon in his grip. The two of them move side by side, one with steel and one with nothing. Happy explains that sword dance means drawing curves at unbroken speed. Those curves are really defense built up for one single attack. The grandfather was blind, and that is why he needed them. He wasted motion on purpose and covered every direction around him. He let the curves pin the enemy, then poured all his nerves into finding the exact position. The curve turns into a straight line and punches through the guard. Happy leans over him and calls this the real sword dance. The sword spins out of his hand while Happy drives his fingers into the chest. The swordsman howls with his head thrown back and both blades on the floor. Happy holds him upright and says Lucastian collected every legend in the world. Every one of those legends ended their last fight against him. Blood bursts out of the swordsman's chest, and the partner is still outside, holding the little sister. Happy has the swordsman pinned face down on the floor, and the man is gasping for air. His fist twists into the man's hair and drags his head off the boards. The swordsman coughs up blood and warns that killing him means the girl dies too. The parents watch from the doorway while he admits they took the little sister. Happy leans over his ear, smiling wide, and asks where they took her. The swordsman blurts out the central sewers, and Happy yanks him upright by the collar. Happy presses his face close and tells him to guide him there. The man squeaks out an okay. The two of them walk for the front door while the parents stay frozen on the floor. The father lifts his head and apologizes for the misunderstanding. The house goes quiet behind them, with the mother sitting on the boards. Outside, the alley opens up between two rows of rooftops. Their boots ring off the cobblestones as they move through town. The pair crosses an empty square, seen from far above. They step into a sewer tunnel with a single light burning at the far end. The swordsman tells him they were planning to lure him here anyway, since these sewers are the main hideout. He grins through his swollen face and says, Happy is the one dying today. He wants a good look at that face first. Happy turns and shows him the smile, all teeth in the green dark. Out in the street, William stands with a bloody sword and asks if Happy came to the house. The father meets his eyes without a word. He apologizes for the misunderstanding one more time. Happy had already told him he was going because of William anyway. Even the man who raised Happy in the arena called him a monster at the end. The dying man lies with his head thrown back and starts the word. He finishes it, monster. A small boy stands in the smoke above him and says nothing. William was different. He saw every piece of Happy and still called him a friend. The farm people did the same, and Happy laughs right in the middle of them. Ever since he came out into the world, more people call him human. He walks off with his prisoner. Happy turns his head back toward the house and tells them nobody needs to worry. He promises to bring her home, and William hears all of it with blood drying on his cheek. William shouts that someone should have stopped him or reported it. The father only says his name. He repeats what he just heard. Happy told them to trust him and it would be fine. That cannot be right. William turns away with the sword hanging loose at his side. He pushes a hand back through his hair and says the kid is just going to die. In his head, Happy kneels in a red pit under a raised axe, with the exile clowns watching. William asks if Happy plans to trade his own life for hers, and says he has to stop him right now. He takes off running. The father calls after him, and William yells back to report that exile clowns went to the farm too. At the barracks, a soldier reports a man walking the streets with a sword. The captain keeps chewing and calls it a strange day. The soldier names that man as William, and the captain stops mid-bite. The next report says William killed an unidentified group and then headed home. Then the big one lands. Exile clowns kidnapped a village child. The captain's mug and his food hit the floor. The child came from William's family, and William is already walking toward the central sewers. The captain runs. He cannot believe the exile clowns are moving this openly because they never pulled anything like this before. He wonders if this is a reaction to that student who hunts exile clowns for pocket money and keeps getting famous. They sent men to kill William, failed, and grabbed his family to squeeze him instead. The plan is to make an example of that family, and the captain snaps that he should have seen it coming. Nearly 100 exile clowns sit in those sewers, a full company. Walking in alone is just death. A knight peels off toward the farm, since reports put exile clowns out there as well. The captain asks whether they are trying to split his forces on purpose. He orders it handled fast, and the two riders split down the road. The captain rides, William runs, Happy keeps walking. Rows of exile clowns line the sewer, and one of them asks if he is William. His mouth stretches into that grin. Happy says yes, he is William, with bodies already scattered in the tunnel behind him. 100 of them are about to find out what that name costs. Back in town, an exile clown leaps and knocks a knight's helmet clean off his skull. The knight just stands there with a bare head and blinks. The clown yells what he is, then announces he is off to raid the farm. The knight tells his men to report a vicious exile clown heading that way, while another one picks up the helmet and mutters that the guy was fast. Out at the farm, the house sits quiet under a clean sky. A pot and a bundle of purple flowers wait on the kitchen table. Winnie stands over them and decides to prepare herbs for Happy. She starts with the ones that dull pain and help with sleep. Then the exile clown is inside her house, doubled over and coughing, saying he ran at full speed and wants a minute to catch his breath. In the shadows, a pair of pink eyes narrows. Out in the grass, someone in black watches the farmhouse with a blade already drawn. The boss laughs in the dark and calls the whole thing ridiculous, while Happy walks straight into a tunnel packed with clowns. Ellie sits tied against the wall, with one clown perched above her as a guard. Happy answers with the smile. They came here to kill everyone, so he asks what else he can do. He says he will just fight until he dies too, and he keeps walking down the red corridor. Nobody in that sewer expected a real fight against numbers like these. The hooded ones watch from the ledge. Happy's arm swings first and catches the nearest clown clean across the cheek. His fist pulls back and cocks tight. The second punch cracks another jaw and spit flies out of the man's mouth. Those two hits were the bell. The whole tunnel pulls steel at once. A sword edge floats right at his eye. Happy says he didn't come here to compete this time. His bare fist knocks the blade aside, and the owner of that blade just stares. He tells Ellie he will definitely save her, and she stares back at him. Happy sweeps low with a stolen sword, and a red arc opens across the ring. He whips the blade back over his shoulder and grit sprays off the floor. Then he drives into the pack, sword up, screams coming from every side. A clown screams for him to come out and fight. His friend next to him is already grabbing air. Happy is at the man's shoulder instead, and blood bursts out where the blade goes in. He ducks under a wide swing, and that swing carves the clown standing behind him. An axe drops for his skull. Happy catches it on the sword and turns it away. He rolls under the next cut with the blade flat against his back. Two arms lock him from behind, while a second man brings an axe down on him. Happy twists at the last second, and the strike lands in the man holding him. From above, the ring around him is already full of bodies and dropped weapons. A clown chops at his head. Happy leans out of the arc without letting go of his sword. The blade lands on a different clown's mouth. Teeth crack and his sword slips loose. Happy's fist comes up again, slow and heavy. It smashes down on a clown's skull and drives him into the stone. The sword falls out of his hand. Another one lifts a blade in the smoke while red eyes crowd in behind him. Happy stands in the middle of the pile, breathing hard, blood drying on his face. One of them finally sees it. Happy is hitting them on purpose while avoiding every vital point. He is using the crippled ones as walls, and their own swings go soft because they might cut a friend. Happy's eyes narrow. Not too much at once, he tells himself. Step by step, little by little, he can save her. He keeps carving a path toward the wall where she sits. The boss screams at them to forget all that and keep attacking. Kill that one guy and it ends. Happy stomps a downed clown into the floor while the screaming gets louder. The masks around him are painted in blood now, and their mouths won't close. The boss can't square it. They had more men, they had the girl, and this is their own ground. He wants to know why the whole fight is bending around one bastard in the middle. Happy's head turns. Far down the tunnel, a shape starts moving in the dark. Ellie is crying against the wall with her eyes squeezed shut. The boss lifts a crossbow off the floor. He seats the bolt and levels the thing. From high above, the girl is a small bundle on the cracked stone. Happy's eyes snap wide open in the middle of the pack. The boss asks if he wanted to see blood and promises to show him plenty. The crossbow is pointed down the tunnel at Ellie. Happy is already running. He tears past the last two blades with his boots hammering the floor. The boss watches him come and tells him it's too late. The crossbow fires and the bolt leaves a red line in the air. Happy dives with his hand out, still smiling, chasing a bolt he cannot catch. Then his eyes stop dead on the wall ahead of him. William got there first. The bolt is buried in his back and he stays curled over Ellie. Happy kicks off the wall right above them and comes down hard. His hand clamps onto the crossbow before the boss can pull it back. The boss barely has time to look confused. Happy skids along the wall and two more clowns go down under him. He smashes the crossbow into the boss's head with everything he has. The boss lies flat with the weapon dropped beside him and Happy is already walking away. Happy grins and tells William to stay back. William is crouched over the girl behind him. A clown's face goes slack. William, the clowns finally get it. The real William walked in while Happy was busy pretending to be him. With every eye locked on Happy, William got close enough to reach Ellie and save her life. He apologizes to Happy through his teeth and Ellie calls him brother. Happy tells him to keep his sister safe. He will trust William and give everything, so William should trust him back. He throws himself back into the pack with both arms out and that grin locked on. William's eyes fill up. He would die to help, and all he can do is sit there and watch. What Happy is doing in that tunnel stopped being a fight a long time ago. Blood goes up the walls, and the clowns keep charging. William's fist closes tight. Whatever this town calls Happy after tonight, monster is not going to be the word. Bodies are scattered all over the slope, and the fight up there still has not stopped. The boss presses his cheek to the crossbow and lines up one more shot. Far down the passage, a single figure keeps moving, and the aim slides right off him. The boss lowers the weapon with a confused look stuck on his face. He tells himself this cannot be luck anymore. Every time the crossbow settles, Happy drifts out of the line like he felt it coming. The boss says he moves like he has eyes all over his body, checking every blind spot at once. Over by the wall, William keeps Ellie pinned behind him while she screams into his shoulder. His eyes stay locked on the middle of the pack. At first, William only thought the guy was good at fighting. Now the floor is covered in bodies and Happy is still standing in the middle of them. William stares at an armored man laid out flat, his hands clenched in front of his chest. The answer finally arrives and his eyes go wide. Happy smashes a clown's face with his forearm while the blades keep coming, and he is still grinning. The boss keeps one eye down the sight and waits for a clean window. His fingers clamp on the stock and the bolt goes screaming down the tunnel. Happy's head whips around with his hair flying loose. He twists off the line and the bolt buries itself in a clown's face instead. The man drops screaming and the ones behind him start calling for the boss. The boss's face goes purple as a hand comes reaching straight through the gap. Happy hauls him in by the collar with blood running down his chin. The boss rips his sword free and roars at everyone to fall back. He cuts at close range and Happy catches it blade on blade. The boss grits his teeth and drags his arm back for the next swing. Their swords lock and gold sparks burst between their faces. They trade cuts in midair while Happy hangs there grinning with his fist cocked. The boss takes the next strike on his blade with his jaw clamped shut. They split apart and crash back together down the corridor. The boss slashes. Happy slides under it and the wall eats the hit. Blood sprays across the tunnel and neither man blinks. The boss charges with the sword up, howling that they cannot end here in a hole like this. Steel meets steel, and he screams that the revenge against the kingdom is only starting. He spits out how his people were used as meat shields in war and mocked as worthless leftovers. He hates every clown act he was ever forced into, and he brings the sword down with all of it. The blade comes down right beside Happy's head. A hand clamps over Happy's face and grinds him down. The arena is full of this kind of thing. The boss is under him with his eyes burning red, still living off hatred for the world that made him. Years earlier, a huge man in an arena cell asked the kid beside him if he resented the parents who made him this way. The man laid a hand on the boy's head and told him not to. He warned Happy never to live consumed by hatred, or he becomes worse than the people he hates. Back in the tunnel, the boss's face twists and his mouth stretches open. The two of them stand apart with blood pooling on the stone between their boots. The boss coughs a mouthful of blood down his chin. He hits the floor flat and Happy stands over him with the sword still hanging from his hand. It ended in blood. William's face is wrecked and streaked and he says the words out loud. They won. He shouts it again with the sword shaking in his grip and Ellie clinging to his back. The clowns break and run, screaming at each other to get out of the tunnel. One of them yells that the kingdom's soldiers are already on the way. William calls Happy's name across the bodies. Happy's head sags forward and William says it again. William screams it and lunges for him. Happy is flat on the stone with his eyes shut. Ellie promises him herbs at home and medicine that will fix him fast. William hears the promise and not one word comes out of his mouth. He finally agrees they should hurry, then remembers the soldiers are probably up there already. Deeper in, a knight commander walks the tunnel and asks why every path is standing wide open. He stares down the corridor with his guards stacked behind him. The commander finds Happy Face on his knees beside a body and wants to know why he is even here. More importantly, he wants to know why every exile clown is lying on the ground. That day, the exile clowns were beaten by a single person. Plenty of them were still scattered around the sewers, but without their leader, they had nothing left. One soldier's eyes go wide, sweat running down his face. The story lands on one name: William, standing alone over the bodies with his sword down. Inside the knight's order, they whisper about the bounty hunter they saw that night. At the tavern, a drinker swears he heard it clearly. At the university, students lean over a desk asking each other if they heard about William. At the market, a woman covers her mouth while the crowd agrees the guy is amazing. The story even reaches the king, sitting there with an advisor at his shoulder. The investigation report was not even written yet, and the whole kingdom already had its hero picked out. But before any of those rumors started, right after Happy finished the fight, Happy was already running for the farm, wheezing with every step. His boots hammer the dirt road in the last of the sunlight. His body is empty, and his sight is going, and he keeps running anyway with one hand stretched out. The boss is alive after all, chained inside a cell, listening to the man who says the kid who once cleaned up after the knights now commands them. The commander stands there in polished armor with the medal on his chest. He tells the boss he respected him right up until the exile and the rebellion. A war hero turned into the exiled king of a rebel faction. He remembers the two of them young, back when the older one was still worth kneeling for. The boss lifts his head and says all of it came down to one guy. The commander asks if he means the man who wiped out a whole company coming home from war 20 years ago. The boss says he survived that field by a miracle, and he remembers it perfectly. One man walked through a company holding a newborn in his arm because the march was in his way. The king called it a story fit for clowns and exiled him on the spot. He became the shame of the knights, a joke at every performance and every drinking party. Coward, traitor, runaway, lunatic, everyone laughed and he lost the whole life he had. Then the same monster showed up again, crushing a man's skull in one hand. It looked far too familiar. The commander stands there and says absolutely nothing. The boss tells him he wants to know who that monster actually is. The commander walks off down the torchlit row and says he is going to find out right now. He lifts a hand behind him without turning around. Then he mentions that nobody died in the sewers, like the attacker deliberately kept them all breathing. A real monster would not care who it had to kill to get what it wanted, the way the boss tried to put a bolt through a little girl. The commander leaves him with one line before the torches. He was the Onal. Happy is flat on the dirt road with his hair stuck to his face, dragging in air like it hurts. Years back in the arena, a huge man leans over him and screams at him to breathe. The kid on the floor answers with a grin full of blood. The man looks over the cuts and says the wounds are far too deep this time. He wraps the leg and reminds Happy the opponent was still way above his level. The bandage goes over a gash that runs across the boy's whole chest. Happy tells him he understood what kind of place the arena was, so he had to get stronger. His dad asks why he keeps chasing strong opponents, since it only raises Lucastian's expectations. The kid gives him nothing back, just a swollen face and a quiet stare. In the dark, Happy admits the thing he thinks about every moment is his dad vanishing for good. He pictures him carried off with a sword still punched through his body. Then the body drops into a black pit and never comes back up. Happy grabs the man's wrist and swears he will never let that happen. The boy's face cracks wide open, tears and teeth and that same broken grin. His dad's eyes go glassy and one tear rolls down past the scar. Their hands lock together and Happy tells him he hates being left alone. The memory turns gray. Happy is holding him up with the blade still in his chest. The body falls into the spikes and the dark, and a red figure watches it go, Sunlight again. Happy is back on his feet at the farm, screaming, his face soaked. He charges the house while the king's soldiers wave spears and yell at him to stop. The first soldier goes flying, and his sword keeps swinging at empty air. The captain shouts to catch him, and Happy sprints straight through the whole line. He blows the door open and skids across the boards inside. The old couple freeze at the table, and Ellie turns around mid-step. Soldiers pile onto his back, and Ellie says his name like a question. Happy shoves through the armor and reaches for her anyway. He wraps her up and holds on with his whole body shaking. Ellie hugs him back and tells him it is fine. Nothing happened here. The captain catches a soldier's sword arm and kills the swing before it lands. Happy stares past all of them with his hand still stretched out. His fingers are split open and dripping in the last of the sunset. A pale hand reaches for him. His dad once promised that someday his world would come back. Night at the farm. The old couple lean into the doorway and tell Happy to rest. Outside, the captain tells Ellie they found no exile clowns, so he leaves a patrol and rides off. Up in a tree above the fence, a wounded man watches the torches and tries to breathe quiet. He figures the farm people would have been safer if the slave had died out there. Watching Happy die, he admits, would have been rough too. He never knew these people cared about the guy that much. Either way, the exile clown took bad wounds, so he probably will not come back. The man sinks into the branches and wonders if he should wait out the patrol. Leaves shift under the branch, and a shape moves through the dark. A figure is standing in the black trees, breathing slow. Birds tear out of the canopy, and the whole tree goes still. His eye slides sideways. Someone is already behind the trunk. An armored man with a torch calls him Sagar and says he was told not to act alone. The fire lights the dirt while the man reminds him their goal is killing royalty, not saving people. A great helm with burning orange eyes promises to purge him the next time he steps out of line. The boots walk off and the torchlight slides away over the rocks. Sagar looks down at the farm and says absolutely nothing. Morning comes and the king's red banners snap over the road. A royal herald stands in the town with a sealed scroll and shouts for William. At the farm, another herald unrolls his scroll and calls out for Happy Face. Both of them are ordered to the castle immediately to stand in front of the king. The slave who buried a whole clown army in the sewers is about to meet the crown face to face. A royal carriage rolls through town. William and his porter have been summoned to the castle. Inside the palace, attendants dress William while a royal official watches. A hand pats the patterned shoulder and the attire is approved. The official smiles and says the king will grant him knighthood. All William has to do is kneel and accept. Honor and wealth follow and the kingdom gets a new hero. William keeps his head down and answers that he is not qualified. The official freezes. The old soldier beside him says nothing. William insists none of it was his doing, from the bounty hunting to the exile clowns. Happy did all of that work and William only ran away and hid. He apologizes and repeats that the honor belongs to someone else. The official's jaw goes slack and a quiet groan slips out. Then he tells William the palace already knew that. An illiterate slave holding a knight's title would humiliate the kingdom, so the king wants Happy freed first and watched as an apprentice. The country already loves the story of the brilliant top student who rose to knighthood. The real version stays classified, and William must not breathe a word of it. Alone in the waiting room, William stares at the floor and is told to come out when ready. He kneels, a blade settles on his shoulder, and the king credits him with tearing out the root of evil. Rows of soldiers hold formation while red banners snap over the courtyard. The crowd chants his name, and the king appoints him a knight. The king also orders the slave into the order as an apprentice, and expects great things from both. In the corridor, two women whisper that the new knight is extremely handsome. William apologizes to Happy for processing the clown bounty carelessly and dragging the farm people into danger. Happy shuts that down. Everyone survived because William was standing there. He knows almost nothing about the world, and he cannot read a situation the way his friend can. When his family was attacked and his sister was taken, he never thought to report it. He just ran. Fighting is the only skill he owns, and rescuing his sister alone was impossible. Then he grins and calls William one of the strongest people he has ever met. In the memory, William throws his arms wide in front of an armored enemy while Happy lies flat behind him. Choosing that fast has nothing to do with muscle. Happy laughs, says he learns from watching him and wants them both to stay exactly who they are. William stares up at him and every argument dies in his throat. He decides the two of them will become friends who genuinely trust each other. His fist closes tight. He is done running and hiding in front of this guy. William would rather become real than keep living as a a fake. He offers to teach Happy about the world and asks to be taught strength in return. Happy's eyes snap wide open, huge and delighted. He howls with laughter and promises to teach back everything he has. The pair head out because the knights want a quick visit before they go home. The training yard turns hostile. One knight respects William, but a slave apprentice is another story. Another lifts a wooden sword, asking if a man who was property an hour ago is now their equal. This challenger calls the whole thing unprecedented and drives the sword into the ground. The wooden blade lands on the stones right at Happy's feet. The challenger points a finger and calls him trash, promising to prove he never belonged. William steps in and says the king decided this, so nobody in the yard got a vote. The challenger turns on William for handing recognition to a lowly servant. Happy just blinks at all of them, completely lost. The blood from the clown battle is not dry, and the yard still calls William a genuine hero. Happy gets the opposite treatment, insulted as an uneducated lowborn with no training. William starts sweating. He expected backlash, not a man this determined to die. The challenger reads that panic as proof a useless servant rode William's back. He plans to hurt Happy until Happy walks away from the position himself. Happy smiles, tells William to relax, and promises to finish this quickly. The two walk into the middle of the yard while every knight lines the walls. Happy grips the sword like a man who has never held one. The spectators snicker. The challenger warns him this is nothing like a gentle sparring match. He raises the blade and promises to smash him from the crown of his head. The wooden edge cracks straight into Happy's jaw. More strikes land. A slave only ever got whipped, so a knight's sword is an upgrade. Another swing catches him and folds him sideways. The blade sweeps back across and knocks his footing out from under him. The challenger calls him slow and laughs at his own joke. From above, it all looks like a beating. Nobody sees the slave fight back once. William's face tightens and he says his friend's name. Then it clicks for him. Happy is putting on an act. The challenger screams at him to beg for forgiveness. Happy goes down hard under the next swing. Dust erupts across the yard and swallows the whole exchange. Happy stands bent with his fist still out and his own sword abandoned in the dirt. The challenger is frozen upright and the watching knights forget to close their mouths. The challenger tips forward and slumps against Happy's shoulder. The order erupts. Dropping a sword to throw punches turns this into a tavern brawl, and a real blade would have cut him down. William is not buying it. One showy hit landed and Happy blocked everything else. He also knows the punch was mercy. Steel there would have killed the man. Face down in the dirt, the challenger feels pain he has never felt in his life. Years of brutal drills never hurt like that single fist. He looks up and finds Happy standing over him, smiling in the red. Happy tells him not to fear pain because surrender loses fights he could win. He leans closer and asks whether the guy came here to win or not. Endure it, he says, and the arena that raised him rises behind the words. The challenger's eyes go white. None of this matches anything he was ever taught. He refuses to call it teaching because it came from a slave. Happy props the wooden sword on his shoulder and cheerfully says he is coming. Wood meets wood, and the challenger has no clue what happened to his own weapon. The wooden sword spins away through the air while the knights scream, and William watches it go without saying a word. The slave they wanted gone just took their best man apart, and he has not even started learning yet. The knight commander storms into the yard and roars at everyone to explain themselves. The challenger is still flat on the stones with a wooden sword propped against his drooling jaw. The commander crosses the training ground. He ordered the newcomers brought to his room, and he walks into a beating instead. He tells the yard that he personally acknowledged both of them and brought them here himself. Then he leans down and asks the challenger if the man had that many complaints about him. The challenger screams that he has none, sir. Every knight behind him screams the same answer, only louder. The commander says one word: dismissed. The yard empties so fast the knights nearly trip over their own boots. He stands with his back turned and lets the silence sit. Then he tells the pair they will never clash with men like that again because the order never recruited them for night work. The kingdom wants two poster boys who take etiquette lessons and show their faces at royal events. William hates it. His own talent stays buried. Happy keeps eating the backlash for his status, and both of them are decoration. He asks whether he could at least watch the training quietly. The commander is baffled. Nobody would say a word, so why ask? William answers that living a lie only delays the day he has to prove himself. He is finished with running and shame. He wants to become a man who breaks neither pen nor sword. The commander's eyes narrow at that. The king built a fake hero, and the real one walked in on his own. He turns and asks whether Happy stands in the same place. Happy grins wide and says they promise to get strong together. The commander stares at both of them and says nothing. In an office, he asks if Lucastian raised Happy from infancy. His aide corrects him because the arena contestants did the raising. The aide dug through the contestant records. The arena only took criminals, yet an absurd number of monsters passed through it. Wars were constant back then, so captured generals filled that sand. A kid who learned under them came out strong among the strong. The aide wraps up his report and apologizes for arriving late with a heavy workload. The commander chews on it. Lucastian could have answered everything, except the man is already dead. The ledger barely helps. Happy's row has every field marked unknown, plus a note calling him a strong being who needs further study. The aide adds that Lucastian held territory elsewhere and traveled the whole world, so his trail might hold more paper. The problem is that the man was already judged, so the aide asks why the commander is digging at all. He is not certain yet. The dates and regions in that ledger line up with an incident he already knows about. For now, he parks the investigation and decides to watch the two of them. Then he corrects himself because those two are guaranteed to cause another incident. Down in the yard, William and Happy promise each other to work hard. Birds of a feather, as the saying goes. One of them shows promise in raw growth and the other in skill. Something old wakes up inside the commander. The fire that went cold the day he took the post is boiling again. He arranges free observation for them and tells them to live like this until he decides otherwise. Back home, the farmhouse sits quiet under the afternoon sun. Happy bursts through the door, waving a certificate, and announces that he is an apprentice knight now. The grandparents stand frozen halfway across the room. He asks where Winnie went, and the grandfather says she left for work. Happy holds up his freedom papers and a fat reward pouch, then hands the whole thing over to them. The grandfather latches onto that pouch with hearts in his eyes, while the grandmother says every day arrives too suddenly. Happy asks if he is allowed to go train with William now. The grandmother reminds him that a free man owes nobody housework. He shouts back that he will do the housework when he gets home. She sighs that children grow up fast. The grandfather calls him no child at all, just their lucky charm. From day one, the two of them chase growth. They run back through town to catch the training session. Knights spar across the yard while the pair settle in above the rail. Happy points and tells William to just watch what that man does. The best swordsman in the order steps up, and both of them lock onto him. The knight drops into a low stance with the blade tucked behind his shoulder. Happy says to ignore the arms. The feet measure the distance first, and the weight shifts before anything swings. He keeps talking while William leans forward and studies the sand. William says he understands, then his face stalls on the next part. The center gets planted first, and the sword only leaves after that. He notices the stance is different, and the timing runs half a beat quicker, which keeps the man ahead even at matching speed. Happy tells him his observation and his analysis are excellent, and both will carry his growth. William locks onto the duel and reads the strongest fighter in one pass. Getting studied like homework leaves the knights uncomfortable. The library comes next, and the two of them sit down with an old book. William points at a letter and says it is pronounced ah. Happy repeats it right back. Then William tells him to read a whole sentence this time. Happy reads the line out loud. True courage lives in the heart that chooses justice, not in the blade. William freezes and asks him how he possibly knew that. Happy shrugs. The lesson plus the flow of the sentence pointed at that phrase. Outside, he reads the sun, calls it west, and announces that noon already passed. Math is next. Happy multiplies 3 loaves a day by a 20-day march for 400 people, lands on 24,000 loaves, and asks for another problem. William is quietly stunned. The basic knowledge he expected to be missing is solid, and Happy applies it on the spot. Happy waves a hand in front of him and says his name. William snaps out of it, calls the day enough, and suggests they pick it up tomorrow. Outside, Happy stretches under a sky full of stars. He yelps and demands to know when exactly it turned into night. He sprints off, shouting that today was fun and he will see William tomorrow. William watches him go and makes a promise to himself. His hand settles on a book about the way of knights, honor, and humility. He refuses to fall behind that guy, and the two of them just started a race nobody in the kingdom is watching. Panels 1 to 73. Chars 6,552/5,700. Winnie is still stuck at the herb shop, and the window behind her has gone dark. She rubs her neck. The night road is dangerous, so maybe she sleeps here again. Her mind drifts to Happy. The king summoned him 3 days ago, and nobody sent word. Work has kept her from going home all week, and she just wants her own bed. A knock hits the door. Winnie freezes mid-thought. She turns and shouts that the shop is closed for the night. The wood creaks anyway, and a voice from outside says it is only him. Happy stands in the doorway. He came to pick her up, and he tells her they are going home. They walk the night street together together while he explains that Grandpa sent him to fetch her. The old man wants her at the celebration dinner, and no excuse is getting accepted. Winnie stops. Celebration? Nobody told her there was anything to celebrate. Her whole face lights up because good news really did come out of that day. Happy grins and tells her the king freed him and made him a knight apprentice. Winnie nearly falls through the street stones. That is an insane jump for a former slave. She grabs her collar and asks what she can do for him because she wants to pay him back too. Happy laughs it off. Seeing her happy is worth more to him. She calls that natural, then asks how Grandma took the news. Grandma was thrilled, he says. The whole mess ended safely and only good things are coming. The two of them keep walking under the torchlight. Happy tells her to stop overdoing it because he will protect her from now on. Winnie goes quiet and her steps slow down on the stones. They walk on and she stares at his back for a long moment. Her hand comes up and settles between his shoulders. Happy glances back with a question on his face. Winnie leans her head on his back and thanks him. It is the first time in her life she has had anything to look forward to. Then she snaps into nurse mode and asks whether he is taking his medicine properly. He sleeps well and feels himself getting better, and her relief drifts over the rooftops. At the farm, Grandpa waves a mug over a roaring bonfire and calls for Winnie. Winnie's face goes completely blank at the noise and the firelight. She asks what all this is, and the old man cheerfully calls it a feast. Winnie asks the old man if he is overdoing it. Shovel Grandpa waves hello beside him, and Cigar watches from the back. Cigar shakes Happy's hand and congratulates him on joining the Knights, and Happy thanks him. Winnie turns back to Grandpa, who is buried in his mug. This was supposed to be a family meal. He happily admits he invited everyone from all around town. He worked the market himself, telling shopkeepers it was nothing special, just about his grandson. Winnie asks where the money for this came from. He answers that he spent the entire reward. What reward money? She asks, and her stomach is already dropping. Happy cheerfully explains they handed it to him when they named him a knight apprentice. Winnie screams that it is all Happy's money while the villagers hoist Grandpa into the air. A villager shouts for the elder to give them a toast. Grandpa laughs and raises his mug to Happy, the future knight of the kingdom. Every mug in the yard slams together and the cheer shakes the bonfire. Happy claps along and tells nobody in particular that this is fun. Villagers line up to shake his hand and congratulate him, and Winnie watches from the edge. Grandpa calls her over to the table where Grandma sits, and she asks why. Happy is a free man now, he says, but the slave stamp on his past will not disappear. It follows him around like a tag, and plenty of people in the kingdom will curse him for it. The feast is a message. Happy belongs to this family, and cursing him means cursing all of them. A slam echoes through the house. Happy already showed them exactly how he thinks of them. The family sat around that table and put this whole gathering together to answer him. Winnie mutters that he could have said all that from the beginning. The biggest reason comes last. They want Happy to feel what living together actually means. Out in the firelight, he is shaking hands with strangers and laughing with every one of them. Winnie watches him, and the sharp look in her eyes softens. A voice says his name. William is standing right there. Happy shouts his name back and drags him toward the food. William stops him because one thing needs handling first, and a man steps up behind him. Happy comes face to face with the father, and neither of them says a word. The father bows his head and apologizes for his rudeness and his harsh words. Owing Happy the lives of his whole family is what finally showed him how foolish he had been. Happy smiles and offers his hand. He never hated the man for any of it. The rest of the household waits behind, the little sister half hidden by her mother. The little sister holds up a cloth she embroidered herself and thanks him for saving her. Happy bends down and takes the gift with both hands, thanking a kid half his height. Grandpa waves everyone in and calls for the glasses to go up. Off to the side, Shovel Grandpa grumbles that he will go dig his own grave after eating this much. Watching that old man show off makes him sick enough to quit living, apparently. He turns to Sagar and promises him a feast just as big if he ever pulls off a win of his own. Then he wanders away for more alcohol, mug already empty. Sagar is not smiling anymore. His face has gone cold. A hooded figure leans in beside him and tells him the date has been set. 2 months from now, the kingdom holds its Knights Tournament ceremony with every eye watching. On that day, the king gets assassinated, the party burns on behind them, and nobody at that farm has any idea what Cigar is sitting on. The kingdom runs a Knight's Order tournament, and the arena is already set for it. Torches burn along the outer walls while the ring sits empty and waiting. Every seat around the field fills up because the whole capital comes to watch. 10 official knights get selected each year, and they line up with blades raised. 10 apprentice knights get picked too, and that second list is what everyone fights over. For an apprentice, crossing swords with a real knight is the biggest honor on offer. The king watches from his throne. A good score here is the fastest road to knighthood. Competition for those slots gets ugly. Happy stands at the notice board, squinting at words he cannot read. Someone calls him an idiot and waves him over. The noble from the host family is grinning. The noble asks whether staring holes through the paper will teach him to read. He tells Happy to forget entering because his house put the most money into this tournament. His family pays for the arena and the prize purse, so he calls the whole event his stage. He tips his head back and soaks in his own speech like a man deeply in love with himself. Then he taps Happy on the chest and asks how ugly a stinking slave would look up there. Happy's eye goes cold for a second and the noble misses it completely. A fist comes up. Every apprentice family feels the same way, so Happy should know his place. He drags a shaking apprentice over and brags about the spar where Happy got beaten like a mouse. He mimes the whole thing with his fingers. Happy took hit after hit, then swung once out of pride. The noble laughs and says Happy is not even a newborn baby. Charming guy, this one. Happy smiles and says he was not planning to enter, but hearing that makes him want to. The noble sighs at him like he is dealing with a slow child. He waves it off. A slave will never qualify for the evaluation in the first place. He walks back into the crowd of apprentices, and all of them laugh at the same joke. Meanwhile, a liberal arts exam gets added to the selection for the first time. William reads the notice. William puts it plainly. The host family is trying to lock Happy out of this tournament. Elsewhere, the noble hands a folded paper to the top apprentice and calls it a gift. It is the answer sheet for the liberal arts exam, and he says so with a smile. The top apprentice tells him flatly that he does not need it. Of course, he is first in everything, but one wrong answer this time costs him that crown. Losing first place would stain the family honor. The top apprentice looks down and says nothing. His gloved hand snatches the answer sheet anyway. The noble smirks because that took about 9 seconds. He talks about allied families sharing first place and painting a beautiful picture together. Back at the desk, Happy says he was not going to do this, but everyone keeps pushing him into it. William stares at the exam notice in his hands and goes quiet. Then he asks Happy whether he wants to try for it after all. The apprentices studied for years, so 1 week of cramming should never be enough. But William says the exam was built to look down on Happy, and the examiner's intentions are obvious. He can predict the questions to a degree. Happy laughs and asks if that is even real. William was always first in his grades at university, and not because he studied harder. He simply read what the examiners wanted. If his predictions land, a pass is possible. The odds stay tiny, and even those odds need absolute effort underneath them. A week later, Happy passes by a single point, grinning at the list while the others stare. The evaluation is a month out, and plenty of people are furious that a slave made the cut. Inside the host family, the noble screams at his father that an illiterate must have cheated. In another house, a father roars that his son cannot have less culture than a slave. Only a few remember Happy studying deep into the night. The top apprentice cannot look at his own pen. The examiners who scored the spoken answers sit at their table and remember one candidate. Happy told them that in war, the will to protect people beats the power to break enemies. He said his tactics were never about destroying life. They were tactics for saving it, and the old war heroes taught exactly the same thing. One examiner's eyes stay locked on that memory. At the table, another one confirms the boy is happy and repeats the host's demand for a low score. The old examiner hears the request and gives no answer back. He only says he does not know whether this will help. Then he writes a special bonus point on the sheet, +1. He tells Happy he hoped the boy would skip the tournament, since it will cause a commotion. Seeing him change that, the kid who grappled a knight down was never a simple fighter. Now the examiner understands why Lucastian risked his life to protect him. He leans in with a grin and says he wants to see where Happy's path goes. In the library, Happy asks William whether he is entering the selection evaluation himself. William says no. His skills would not reach a knight's toes, and his identity would be exposed. Happy asks what he would do if he became comparable. William has no answer ready. Out in the yard, the noble spots him training and cannot believe he is serious about this. A knight coaching an apprentice personally is unheard of, and the watching crowd is openly jealous. The noble sneers that the effort is wasted since Happy's sword posture is complete garbage. He promises to shatter every limb Happy owns if that skill level shows up in the arena. Then he leads the group off, calling calling Happy a mouse who hides in a warehouse to train. Inside that warehouse, Happy swings the wooden sword and shouts that he is copying William exactly. William sits there and quietly asks whether that posture was really his own. He covers his face because now he sees it. What he thinks he does and what he does are different. Happy offers to spar right now, fighting exactly like William so the flaws show themselves. As William improves, Happy will scale up to match him. 1 month left and William should try to win, copying a fighter that precisely sounds impossible, and William says so out loud. Happy holds the sword out and tells him to get up. William proved it was possible, so now it is his turn. The apprentices get a day off from training and they are loving every second of it. William is in the warehouse anyway, tracking his opponent's eyes and footwork. He decides the attack sits inside a range he can predict, so he twists out of the swing. The wooden blade slides past his head while he keeps his weight low. William catches the next strike on his own sword and shoves it aside. Both weapons smash together hard enough to bounce the fighters apart. His boots skid over the floor as he plants his stance again. The counter lands too late and he knows why. The timing needed to be exact. Wasted swings only burn stamina. He has to dodge and measure the distance in one beat. Sparring for real finally makes the whole thing click for him. Every exchange is a game of moves, and he is facing a man who predicts each one. The options light up in front of William, and now he is finally seeing them clearly. The blades scrape together one more time. An opening shows itself, and his first instinct is to block fast. Then he stops. This attack is not what it looks like. The blade is short and traveling straight. That slash is a thrust in disguise. A counter is the right answer, so William drives forward instead of retreating. The wooden tip stops right at the throat. William laughs and names the trick out loud. The fake slash was a thrust all along. Happy stands there, breathing hard, and a grin starts crawling up his face. The corners keep climbing until the smile stops looking human. His mouth splits wide open across his whole face. Happy calls the number out loud, 313 victories. He lowers his sword and congratulates William by name. William drags in air with sweat running down his jaw. He won by a paper-thin margin again, and he knows exactly how thin that margin was. 1 day is left before the ceremony. A month of rebuilding himself puts William on the floor. The bigger surprise sits next to him. Happy is barely dented. Happy copied his mistakes, his habits, and his strategies down to the last detail. He copied the bad shoulder too. William cannot work out how that is even possible. Happy laughs and suggests they finish early and rest up for the evaluation tournament. William nods and agrees to stop for the day. The commander tells him flat out that he cannot enter the evaluation tournament. At the ceremony, William will sit beside the king and greet the people, nothing more. The commander assumed he would skip it because dueling knights would expose his skill instantly. William says nothing back. 1 month of training against real knights does sound insane. His fist closes. The training was about beating himself, not about matching an order of knights. Even so, he tells the commander he wants to take the evaluation. He will be lacking whenever he starts, so he wants to start by admitting it. The commander calls him stubborn. The old man sighs and drops the argument. The next day, the field fills with apprentices stretching for the evaluation tournament. The sponsoring family's father jokes to the judges that his son deserves no extra points. The first evaluation tournament opens out on the grass. Hero William gets matched against the second-ranked knight of the order. Inside the tent, the commander tells that knight to go easy on him. William has never even held a sword, or so the commander still believes. The kid's enthusiasm beats his skill, so the knight should end it before suspicion grows. The knight accepts the order without pushing back. He gives the commander a short nod. Out on the field, William keeps his eyes fixed forward. The knight picks up his wooden sword, curious about the slave who beat the exiles. Then William lunges early and cracks his swing straight into him. The referee jumps in. Nobody moves before he shouts, "Begin." William bows low and apologizes, blaming his nerves. The knights in the stands read it as a demonstration of the classic first-timer mistake. The commander stares at the field. He never expected any of this. Sweat runs down his face while he keeps watching. The flag drops and the match starts for real. William moves, and the second-ranked knight cannot follow him. He drops low and eats the distance between them in one step. A body slams into the dirt and vanishes inside a cloud of dust. William skids to a stop with the wooden sword still out. The apprentices ask each other what just happened. Only Happy knows the answer. One of them hangs over the fence with his mouth open. Every single day, Happy imitated William inside that warehouse. The more he imitated him, the closer that swordsmanship got to perfect. Happy looks up and grins. William's own sword style, finished for him. And honestly, he admits keeping up with it at the end was getting hard. The knight studies William mid-exchange and decides the kid is not actually fast. The wooden blades lock, and raw muscle is not what is winning here either. Their fingers slide over the hilts while both of them hold the bind. What the knight respects is the judgment. Every read arrives exactly on time. The finishing strikes come in clean and stop where William wants them to stop. The kid picks the correct answer at every single exchange, without one wasted beat. From the outside, it all looks like plain, ordinary swordsmanship. Then William bites down, and years of real experience come out of that swing. The crowd cannot tell who is ahead. A rules demonstration should not look this serious. Still, William spots the gap. The knight could end this in one move and refuses to. Inside the tent before the match, the commander handed that knight an order. Out on the sand, William's fingers tighten around the wooden grip. The swords crack together, and a question mark lands over his head. His eyes go flat behind the blade. The whole picture just clicked into place. The knight is holding back, and William caught it when the man traded looks with the commander. His fist closes. Even if he is the one lacking, he wanted a real fight out of this. William roars that he will give it everything and throws himself forward. A palm goes up across the field. The knight forfeits on the spot. The referee calls the match dead while William stands there completely stunned. The rules explanation match is over, and the stands break into applause. Both fighters salute. The audience learns today that forfeiting is even an option. William's hand clamps around the hilt hard enough to shake. Then the fingers open again and let the frustration drain out of them. He blames himself. Being too weak is why he could not drag his opponent's best out. Inside the tent, the commander admits the boy fought better than anyone expected. 1 month of training should not build that. The old man also praises the knight for stopping at a smart moment and for selling the act. The knight shakes his head. Carrying on was never really an option for him. His boot trembles in the grass. William had been hunting that ankle from the first swing. The strike that cracked into the joint flashes back through his head. After that hit, William turned the duel into a footwork race and forced that left foot to plant over and over. Every plant loaded more strain onto the ankle, so the knight quit before the joint gave out. He tells the commander plainly that he lost. The old man has nothing ready to say. Up in the stands, the apprentices pull the whole match apart. One theory says William spent the fight waiting for a heavy attack. A counter off that swing would do the most damage with the little power he has. Happy lays it out with a grin. 3 blank faces turn toward him. Nobody asks the servant for tactical analysis. Finn snaps and demands to know what a servant could possibly understand about any of this. Happy only smiles back, and Finn runs completely out of insults. Privately, Finn admits he has felt weirdly fond of the servant ever since their own match. He clicks his tongue about the boy acting like some close disciple. Barely any knight teaches this sincerely. Most hand out chores instead of one-on-one drilling all day, so the servant just has insane luck. Finn mutters that he barely missed the cut on the liberal arts exam. Happy offers him a spot because William needs sparring partners. The invitation arrives with that giant open smile. Finn nearly chokes. The correct title is Sir William, thank you. He barks about manners, then coughs and quietly settles back down. Standards drop with someone like that included, he says. Another apprentice instantly asks to join. A third one shoves forward and claims the spot for himself. The whole group swarms in, begging for a place in the training. Finn screams at every single one of them to shut up. Getting William's training now means going through a servant, and Finn hates every part of that. The apprentices crowd around Happy anyway, all talking over each other. Off to the side, the noble heir watches the mob and smiles at the sight. 33 evaluation matches later, the field is still running. Trumpets blare for the heir as he raises a hand and takes his turn. One judge hides a laugh behind his palm. The commander just stares at the horns. The family in the stands says the boy already acts like a knight, and they paid a fortune for exactly that. The heir suggests they begin by clearing out whatever does not belong on this field. He calls Happy livestock and orders him to step up. The commander mutters that the insult is beyond rude. The judge's table calls it perfect upbringing, a son who cannot tolerate filth, chivalry, plus 1 point. The two of them take the field with wooden swords while the referee steps between. The heir licks his lips and says he is already drooling over taking Happy apart. Back in the stands, the quiet apprentice turns to Finn. He asks whether Finn really beat that servant like a rat back then. Finn's face drops. He wants to know why anybody is bringing that match up now. The quiet one admits he happened to watch the whole thing from the side. In the memory, a voice screams that he refuses to admit anything. "You piece of trash." Down in the pit, the servant takes hit after hit while the others keep swinging. Even then, it felt like the boy was holding back on purpose. He asks Finn whether anything felt strange during the punches and the fighting. Finn snaps that he noticed nothing, so the quiet one asks if he could win a rematch. The question lands hard, and Finn goes silent with sweat on his jaw. A red memory surfaces of that grinning shape standing in the arena. The quiet apprentice says Happy makes him uneasy, and that the boy does not seem to belong in this world at all. Finn does not buy a word of it. To him, the servant only looks dumb. They will find out in this match. Happy lifts his wooden sword, and the smile is already too wide. Before the tournament, William sits Happy down in the storeroom and hands him one rule. In this evaluation, Happy gets to use swordsmanship and nothing else. Their first day of sparring told William everything he needed. No matter how good the servant is, these people only acknowledge proper technique. The old memory of him curled up in the rain under a pile of fists proves the point. William tells him to show the crowd something they cannot refuse. Playing the underdog is banned too. He wants domination from the very first exchange. William also calls the new liberal arts exam a gift. The people who still see a slave and the ones who talk down to him can all be answered in a single afternoon. William grins and guarantees the result before a sword is even drawn. This stage was built for Happy alone, and our guy walks out with a wooden sword and that giant smile. The noble heir laughs at him across the sand. The stance looks decent, so the lessons apparently stuck, and that is where the compliment ends. Up at the judges' seats, the heir's father waves a quill and yells that the path is open, with 1,000,000 bonus points ready. Happy announces basic swordsmanship technique. The heir has no idea what that is supposed to mean. The wooden blades slam together and chips of wood spray off the edge. Happy drives a thrust straight up the middle and the heir folds backwards over it. The heir squeals with the blade coming at his face. He swings back hard, and Happy is already standing inside the arc. The two of them lock up close, and the servant is grinning through the whole thing. The next thrust snaps the heir's head back and throws his sword arm into the sky. The heir ends up staring at open clouds with no clue how he got there. Blood crawls down from his eyebrow across his cheek. The referee walks in while the heir lies face down in the dirt. At the judges' table, one of them counts the hits out loud. Heart, head. Another judge calls the whole thing a perfect score. William finishes the verdict, full marks. The apprentices in the stands cannot believe it is over already. The whole thing was that clean. The heir's father snaps his quill in half. Then the referee lifts the yellow flag and screams for the match to continue. Happy stops dead and asks what the man just said. One judge mutters that there is no way, that bastard. The referee has 10 years on the job and he just took a bribe worth more than his entire career. Now he needs the match alive so the heir can win on points. He claims he got distracted and missed the hit. He whispers that even a graze scores bonus points, so the boy only has to hang in there. The heir calls him a damn bastard anyway. The heir lifts his sword and blames the first round on carelessness. Over at the rail, William watches and wonders if they are really going through with this. The heir decides the servant knows exactly one trick and figures William drilled that thrust hoping he would drop his guard. The plan is simple. Dodge the thrust, then slash and finish it. Instead, a thrust tears into his ribs and he screams through every bit of it. The crowd starts whispering that the servant is good, way too good for an apprentice. The heir sags onto one knee. The heir screams that his real swordsmanship has not even shown up yet. A thrust arrives in his face instead. Another one punches through before he can lift the blade back up. The third digs into his stomach and the blood comes with it. The referee panics and shrieks for a stop. He claims the heir's belt came loose and orders a restart, sweating through his collar, silently begging the boy to land one single hit. Finn stares at the gap in basics. Nobody should be able to dominate like that, using only thrusts. William thinks Happy went past expectations again. Anyone watching can see a perfect victory. The heir's father keeps repeating that this cannot be happening. Happy tilts his head and tells the heir to get up, friend. He says the rumor puts the heir among the top apprentice knights, but bottom tier is what he actually sees. The heir demands to know what is wrong with him. Happy spent a month quietly watching everybody train, the heir included. The fighting spirit is genuine and the build helps a lot. Spirit like that does serious work in a real fight, which is why the kids across from him assumed they are beaten and quit early, even when the win was sitting right there. Finn goes pale. Happy told him the exact same thing after their spar, so maybe that fight was a favor. The heir charges and screams at him to shut up. A bare hand clamps around the wooden blade and the swing dies on the spot. The heir shoves into the lock with everything he has left. Whatever fighting spirit he had is broken now, and the blade sits flat across his face. He screams for Happy to shut his mouth and swings one more time. The counter snaps the heir's sword clean in half. The heir stares at the stump of wood still in his fist. The broken blade lands point down in the sand. Happy had the timing and the impact point picked out from the second the heir provoked him. Happy rests both hands on the pommel and offers a fist fight too if the heir would prefer that. The referee finally raises the flag and gives Happy the win, muttering that he did what he could. Up in the stands, the heir's family comes out of their seats. Down on the ground, the heir sobs into the dirt. Happy tells him to stop treating people like slaves. Every time he does it, he drags himself and the whole night order down with him. Happy pulls William aside and asks if he really has to say lines like that. Winning should be enough on its own. William says no, he is making the entire yard understand that Happy's strength carries a knight's restraint behind it. William tells him to look around if he still does not get it, and Happy's face finally softens. The grin drops for a second and his eye goes wide. One apprentice starts clapping, then a second one joins in. The applause spreads across the whole field until every person standing there is acknowledging him. William throws him a thumbs up. The slave they were kicking a month ago just made a knight order clap for him, and nobody here has seen the ceiling of what he can do. Panels 1 to 73. Chars 6,332/5,600. An apprentice throws his hand into the air and calls for the next duel. Happy just stands there with the same wide grin, waiting for someone to explain it. A challenger steps up and says his own opponent already forfeited, so he wants Happy instead. One of the judges grumbles that this evaluation has turned into complete chaos. The host cursed the whole thing out and walked off the field. The apprentices forget rank completely and shout over each other for a slot. Somebody at the rail asks if everyone here has lost their minds. A knight crushes the wooden fence in his fist and says the entire training system needs to be torn down and rebuilt. Everyone watching feels the same way. His eye stays locked on the sand below. Happy walks out with a wooden sword while the challenger waits at the far end of the ring. The two of them lock eyes and the crowd wants that match one more time. The challenger's stare goes cold. Every person in the stands wants to see this. The referee sweats through his collar and tells them to proceed. His hand drops and the duel is on. The challenger says the heir's skill was always hot air, and that the guy was never good enough to measure Happy at all. He wants a proper duel instead, with nothing held back on either side. The challenger lifts his blade and tells Happy to come at him with full force. Up in the crowd, another apprentice barely recognizes him. The guy seems like a completely different person now, and it is confusing as hell. The challenger leaps off the platform and drops into the ring with his sword out. He swallows hard and squeezes the handle with both fists. He opens with a massive overhead swing. Happy meets it in the air and the wooden blades slam flat against each other. The edges scrape and spin and the cut goes wide. Another parry follows and sand kicks up around their boots. William watches the flow of it and admits every movement links cleanly together. That is not apprentice level. Over William's shoulder, the two of them drift back toward the stone wall with nowhere left to run. They crash together again and the ring floor tears up under the spin. The challenger reads it all. Defense into response into attack, and every piece of it is clean. Happy grins at him and the challenger admits this is past ordinary. Happy kicks off the cracked bricks and comes down with the sword while the challenger sprawls in the dirt. Still, the guy tells himself the technique was learned in a rush and his own base is more solid. The challenger drags his blade back up and swears he will not go easy. Happy stares over the locked wooden edge and reads him. The swordsmanship is perfect, without a single flaw in it. The challenger looks up with no idea what is coming, then Happy's face turns into a red monster in front of him because perfect only counts inside the knight order. The referee scrambles in with the red flag while an apprentice hangs off the rail asking if the guy is alive. Happy crouches down and asks if he is okay. The challenger lies flat with his sword in the dirt beside him. The challenger jolts upright, fully convinced his head got cut clean off. Happy laughs and says he was only kidding. The guy just fainted for a moment. Sweat runs down the challenger's face. He was certain that last move was the finish. He remembers dropping his sword right after the exchange. The blade got ripped up out of his grip while a hand clamped onto his head. He stares at the handle standing in the sand and can't work out how it got there. Happy leans over him and tells him the movements were flawless. The only problem, our guy says with a grin, is that the swordsmanship never changes. Every stance is identical. Even in daily training, the apprentices repeat the same mind games they both already know. Death comes from the move nobody expects. In an arena, a hooded fighter slips inside an armored knight's guard and cuts him open. The challenger sits in the rubble and says everything he built has been denied and collapsed. Happy stands over him and corrects it. Nothing collapsed, the mold just broke. He tells the guy to look at the bigger picture. The challenger stares up at him with no answer left. The bigger picture is a street covered in skulls, old blood, and blades driven into the stones. Happy scratches his head and apologizes to William for fighting his own way. William says the first match showed more than enough. Then he mentions he found some sparring partners. The entire apprentice crowd is lined up and beaming at him, and there are way more of them than anybody planned for. The paperwork goes through. Happy is confirmed for the tournament ceremony. An old knight drops his head into his fist at the table. The younger knight beside him watches the old man quietly. His mouth curls into a small, proud smile. Down in the market, a man decides to buy meat and feed the kid before the ceremony. In a house across town, a little girl demands to know what she should wear because she needs to cheer for him. The family tells her the brother of the house is not in the ceremony. She means brother Happy, and the servants keep folding cloth around her. Out in a graveyard, the gravedigger unrolls a strip of cloth in his hands. The message tells him the date approaches and to sharpen his blade for the day of the assassination. The old keeper hobbles over with a shovel and asks what he is holding. The gravedigger says it is only cloth scraps that turned up during work. Then he flips it around and asks the old man what is bothering him. The keeper rubs his eyes and says it is nothing much. He opens his fist and holds a corded charm out to him. A little skull charm hangs off a cord. Spend more time with dead people than living ones, he says, and the dead start bothering you. The charm is an amulet that keeps them off. He used it himself when he was young, and he calls it a reward for enduring the work. The gravedigger ties it on and thanks his master. It is exactly what he needs. The keeper laughs that what he really needs is a salary, and salary comes from working, so get moving. Far from the training yard, fog sits over a line of trees. A knight in white armor carries firewood past a wooden shrine box in the woods. Red eyes stare out through the slit of the helmet while somebody screams for a brother knight. A wounded knight staggers out from the trees, yelling that assassins are attacking and the kingdom has to be warned. The masked knight stands there and says nothing at all. The wounded man screams at him for staring blankly and tells him to run. A blade tears his throat open and blood sprays across the bark while the masked knight keeps walking forward. The red eyes behind the helmet do not blink once. A woman in black stands over a fallen body with her sword out. The ones who shared her cause have already died here. She walks out of the forest alone and says she will go behead the king herself. Whatever Happy is training for, it is coming for him a lot sooner than the ceremony. 50 days back, a body lies face up in the grass with a sword dropped across it, and the killer stands over the corpse in the fog. Right after the exile clown's boss got jailed, he sits chained to a stone wall. A knight walks into the cell while the chains crank his arms up over his head. A fire pit glows in the corner. Red eyes stare through the helmet slit and ask who threw a royal into the arena. The boss coughs one name up through the chains. Lucastian. Down in the dark cell, the knight tells him it wasn't that noble. Lucastian's face lights up in the dark, and nothing about his story adds up. The man confessed to crimes he never committed, cooled the king's rage, and bowed at the throne. Then he ended the whole case with his own death. That is how the incident closed. The knight says they are still hunting the real culprit. The boss asks who "we" even means, and reminds him the king already shut the case. The chain snaps tight and hauls him off the floor. The boss chokes while the knight admits he isn't with the Knight Order at all. His people had their own plan to wipe out the royal family. That plan nearly died when the guards flooded the castle, screaming that someone was after the royals. Hooded figures sat still in the courtyard while every street got searched. They only survived because they dug up a royal corpse first and steered the probe. A masked man hands a note to an old villager, and the trail goes where they want it. The knight leans back in and asks who hunted the royal if not the clowns. The boss hangs there and says nothing for a long moment. Then he gives up the name. Kalina did it. She was never a real exile clown. She showed up as an outsider and said she wanted in on killing the king. The clowns remember her walking straight up to the boss, asking to join, asking if she should call him boss now. They handed her castle intel and she grabbed a royal that same night. A rope loops around his throat while he screams. Kalina dragged him into the sewers and ripped every hair out of his head. Then she walked him through the market on a rope, past a butcher's counter, while he begged strangers to believe he was a royal. Nobody believed him. He screamed about a mistake from inside a pen, while a buyer laughed, agreed to pay for that hunk of meat, and told him to dig up his pedigree in a pigsty. Kalina stood in the crowd, biting into an apple, smiling like she just did errands. The knight wants to know why she targets the royal family. Revenge, a contract, a spy job, anything. The boss says she told them nothing at all. She only ever said one thing about it. You don't need a reason to slit a pig's throat, you do it when you're hungry. Out in a foggy forest, Kalina turns around with blood already on her face. A knight in silver armor stands between the trees and says nothing. He tells her they should have tracked her down a lot sooner, and here she is causing trouble again. Kalina squints at him and asks if she is supposed to know him. Her eyes flick down as his weapon comes up. He whips a chained blade at her in a wide arc. She drops low and lands with a curved dagger in each hand. Kalina looks at the chain and tells him that gear is not knight issue. The chain lashes back past his helmet with a metal snap. Steel and chain crash together. Blood sprays off the grass, and she decides he is definitely not a knight. She wants to see the flesh under the metal. His eye widens behind the slit. Blades and chain rip through the clearing, and his helmet flies off into the trees. Kalina stops cold and asks what is wrong with his face. His whole head is bald, cracked, and scarred, with orange eyes sitting in the middle of it. She asks if self-harm is his hobby. The scarred man says nothing while her dagger hovers near his neck. He tells her he belongs to a group that shares her goal. Kalina asks who else hunts royals besides the clowns. He warns her that every scene she causes makes wiping out the royals harder. Security tightens, walls get thicker. Kalina grins and asks if he really thinks he can pull it off. He says the king's assassination has been planned for years and is about to land, as long as she stops ruining it. Kalina admits she finds him hard to trust. So she lifts her blade and offers a deal. Let her into the plot and she keeps quiet until the day. Her old ship is sinking, so she climbs onto the new one. That's just how it works, she says. The scarred man says their cult leader decides that and tells her to follow. Kalina repeats the words cult leader like she misheard. Torches burn down a cave wall painted with a huge red circle, and a giant hand clamps over her skull. The cult leader looks down at her and tells her not to be afraid. Kalina swallows hard under that grip, and her throat moves against the shadow. The cult leader lets go, points past her, and tells her to leave. She should find his son and become a true servant to him. Kalina blinks and asks who this son is supposed to be. Out in a dusty village, a man named Sagar sits on a cart taking a long drink. An old man says the guy is just a laborer working for a few days' pay. Kalina asks if this is the son, and Sagar sprays his drink everywhere. She tells him she is sticking around until tournament day, and Sagar has no idea what to do with that. Only 3 days are left. The ceremony grounds sit empty under a clear sky. Inside a palace hall, shadows of seated nobles stretch across the wall. The nobles say the ceremony cannot be defiled like this, and one of them asks the table for ideas. Another noble slams his fist and shouts that slaves and commoners joining the tournament disrespects every noble alive. The rest argue that William earned his place, until one noble in red asks a much darker question. Would they help him crush William completely at the ceremony? Inside the noble council, a man leans over the table and demands to know what they mean by fake. Another one shouts about every achievement William supposedly earned. The idea that an unqualified arena slave led the whole thing has him on his feet with his fists shaking. An older noble warns them that words carry responsibility and asks if they are certain about this. The ringleader leans in with a smile and says his son knows all about William and that slave. Someone repeats the name Happy, and the man beside him confirms that it belongs to the arena champion. The story they were sold is a guy who could not fight and was dying from beatings in the pit. Then he beheads 3 mercenaries and wipes out the exile clowns. The nobles ask how that is possible. Guard testimony says William only put his name on the bounty hunt and let others do the work. A noble across the table raises his hand and says he has a piece of this too. His son overheard the captain telling the commander that William has never even held a sword. The room erupts. One of them yells that the famous duel was stage acting between the two of them. The nobles who have been waiting for their chance start speaking up one after another. Plenty of people already know that slave because Happy was famous in the arena. After nearly being executed over the royal death, those witnesses kept quiet to stay out of the case. The ringleader makes the call. They leave the slave alone and tear down the fake hero William instead, and Happy falls away with him. Somebody asks how, since William already has his post in the Knight Order. Touching him could insult royal authority. The ringleader drops an arm around another noble and says they will stage a fake fake kidnapping on tournament day. The fake exile clowns he hired will hold nobles hostage and demand a duel. A hooded man points a sword at a woman on her knees. Then every noble in the stands will praise William and beg him to show what he did before. If William refuses to step up, he gets branded a coward. If he steps up, he is finished anyway. With noble lives on the line, the Night Order has to comply. The table loves the plan. Far away in a green field, Happy throws his arms up and cheers the exact same words. Ellie jumps beside him. He charges at a chestnut tree with a grin on his face. His kick slams into the trunk and the whole thing shakes. Chestnuts rain out of the branches with the leaves. Happy and Ellie crawl through the grass and load them into a basket. A hand flicks 2 of them into the campfire. The flames crackle and spit around the shells. The roasted ones pop back out and land at their feet. The shells split open with steam curling off the meat inside. They chew away with their eyes closed, completely at peace with the world. Winnie thanks them both for helping her gather herbs. Ellie says she actually came along to play with Brother Happy. Winnie says the 2 of them find even falling leaves fun. Happy hurls an armful of leaves into the air, and Ellie screams that it is raining. A man calls from the hill for Ellie to come home, and she waves goodbye to Happy. Ellie announces she will head back first, and Happy tells her to get home safely. She promises to dress up pretty and come cheer for him tomorrow. Both of them wave from the grass. Winnie and Happy settle by the fire with the herb basket between them. She asks how he feels about the tournament. Happy says he is happier that everyone is coming to watch. He laughs at the sky, and Winnie studies him with her chin propped on her hand. Then she asks the real question: is life in the Night Order hard? None of this was what he wanted. He has spent his whole life fighting battles he never chose, and the Order exists to practice exactly that. His pain is healed, and his reasons to fight are gone, but things keep pulling him back in. Happy smiles and says the Order is nothing like the arena. He pokes at the fire with a stick. In the arena, people kept dying even when he did not want them to. Even the ones who hated him left with empty faces, as if none of it had meant anything. But here, he says, everyone stays. There is time to keep learning about each other and a future where they can all change. That is why he likes it. Winnie keeps her eyes on him while he talks. She admits she was worried, then decides it is fine. The Night Order will not throw him into fights where people die. The wars ended with their parents, and peace has held for 20 years. She looks down and says that peace cost a lot of sacrifice. Then she yells that Grandma bought meat, and Happy launches both arms into the air. The next morning is tournament day. Carriages roll up outside the packed grounds. Back at the farm, someone knocks on the door, and a voice inside asks who is there. An old man in a hood holds up a scroll. He came to deliver a letter left by the late Lord Lucastian. He asks whether a slave named Happy lives here. Winnie repeats the name, and Grandma confirms it. Lucastian was Happy's master, the arena owner. The old man sits down and says he traveled from a distant territory beyond the Empire's reach. Winnie tells him Happy is not a slave anymore. He is a knight apprentice now, so she offers to carry the letter over herself. The old man refuses. His orders are to meet Happy in person and let nobody else read it, so he takes his leave. He walks his horse back out through the farm gate. 1 hour until the tournament. The stands are already filling up because of William. The king asks where the princes and princesses went. An attendant says the duke went to fetch them and they will arrive soon. Near the royal seats, the captain tells a young knight there is nothing to be nervous about and to keep his posture straight. A helmeted knight watches the field while rows of knights line up across the grass. Happy waits with the other apprentices in brown, staring up at the packed stands. Ellie stands on her seat and screams for Brother Happy. Winnie sits with Grandma in the crowd and calls out that he is looking good. The ringleader watches from the noble seats with his arms folded. 2 watchers crouch in the bushes above the grounds and ask if it is about to start. The hired clowns tie the wrists of a mustached noble who wants the knots done properly. The rest of the nobles are pretending to be kidnapped at a fake hideout. The old messenger leads his horse through those same woods and mutters that they are all at the tournament grounds, not the Night Order. Far from every bit of it, the castle towers sit quiet in the sun. A servant calls in through the prince's window that the tournament is starting and asks if he is really still asleep. Inside, a man in a red cloak stands in the ruined room with a bloody knife. A body in a green dress lies slumped against the couch. He flicks the blood off his blade and his face does not change at all. Then he walks out through the dark, past a dropped sword and a hand wearing a royal ring. The whole kingdom is watching the tournament and nobody knows the royal family is being wiped out right now. Up in the bushes over the tournament grounds, Kalina crouches next to Cigar and calls him out. She has worked out that he started tailing her back when the mercenaries were beating William. Kalina asks whether that guy really became a knight, and a crying face floats up in her memory. Sagar says William climbed the ladder on fake achievements, and that is why the nobles are pulling stunts. Kalina closes her eyes and says of course they would, because he was never that kind of person. Cigar admits he expected to kill William back then, but the guy simply walked away. Kalina smiles at him and asks what makes him so sure about that. He calls her past work ruthless and points out that William filed the report on it. William also collected the bounty money, so nobody can call him unrelated. A memory shows him strolling along with a grinning partner. Kalina looks away and says that is just her style. Cigar stares at her because nothing about that answer explains anything. She grins and calls it her preference. A scared puppy is exactly what she likes. Cigar repeats the word preference like he misheard it. Kalina swings down through the branches and says it is time to work. Cigar reminds her they were told to guard the escape route. His eyes blow wide open and sweat runs down his cheek. Kalina's knee smashes into a hooded mercenary's face and lifts him off the grass. The man drops in the dirt. Cigar demands to know what she is doing and whether she is insane. Wearing the stolen brown hood now, Kalina says the mercenaries hired by the nobles are about to cause a disturbance, so she has to kill all of them. Cigar reminds her their goal is royal assassination. He tells her not to act outside the objective, and Kalina fires back that he once tried to kill her. Besides, she says he is the one who does not understand the objective. A few rats planted inside the kingdom would be enough for a royal assassination. She asks why squads are planted across the whole territory. Their people sit in the eating houses and the sleeping houses right down to the beggar districts. Kalina asks why they would strike in daylight where every spectator can watch, and she calls that plan a slaughter. She smiles under the hood while she says it. The order she read says to kill as many as possible, to the very limit of what a person can handle. A burning city sits behind her face. Cigar tells her to stop making wild assumptions. Kalina catches his wrist and asks if he is a naive child following daddy's will. She holds up a written order in her glove and says she snatched it off his colleague. Then she asks whether his own order carried the words day of slaughter. Cigar's eye twitches and he gives her nothing back. Kalina answers for him, it probably didn't. She tells him his daddy is deceiving him and plans to devour this whole kingdom. The castle glows red over the tree line. Kalina walks off into the woods and says she is going. Cigar watches her go. A gloved hand slides a blade out of its sheath. The hooded mercenaries march the hostage noble down the slope and he tells them to hurry because it is about to start. Kalina's hand stops dead on the hilt when the noble asks if they only need to finish William. He holds up his roped wrists and says knights would never act rashly with noble lives on the line. The noble tells them to deal with William and then disappear quietly. Under the hood, Kalina repeats that name. Then he strolls off humming and tells everyone to hurry up. Up in the stands, a noble folds over his stomach and the man beside him asks what is wrong. The sick noble says his gut is killing him and he needs a bathroom. He wonders if the food went bad. Half the seats are still empty and somebody complains that everyone is late. A voice offers to show him the way. A knight offers to walk him over to the portable toilet and the sick noble takes the offer. He shuffles along sweating and blames the cook for using spoiled ingredients. The knight leads him far out past the field. The knight suggests a spot where nobody can see would suit him better, and the noble agrees. At a chain fence, red eyes light up in the dark right behind him. A blade rips across his face and he goes down in the grass. The armored escort just stands there. The body gets dragged off into the bushes, and the red eye behind the helmet never blinks. Down on the field, the shouting starts. The exile clowns have come back for revenge. The masked knight turns toward the grounds while voices scream for William to come down. Hooded men rise in the stands with swords out and announce they have kidnapped every noble. A noble comes sprinting in, yelling that the nobles are trapped in a cave and that he barely escaped to warn them. The ringleader calls out for Knight William to step forward against these lowly remnants, exactly like he did against 100 enemies. William stands beside the captain and says nothing at all. A voice starts sobbing and begging to be spared, and it is the least convincing sob ever recorded. The hostage noble screams at the hero not to be scared, waving his roped hands with flower petals drifting behind him. The ringleader watches that performance and his face empties out. The acting is worse than trash. One of the hooded men leans over and tells him to just be quiet. William tells the captain he can spot the noble's scheme at a glance, but the swords out there are real, so people may actually die. In the packed crowd, a family asks what is going on, and a spectator guesses it is part of the tournament. The captain tells him there is no need to go down, because His Majesty Majesty will handle it. Up on the throne, the king asks who dared to scheme such a prank. The kidnapped nobles look at their tied hands and go completely silent. Kalina lets out a long sigh under her hood, and her patience for the act runs out. She raises a blade behind the hostage noble and calls them stupid bastards. While he asks what went wrong, the blade comes down and his fingers spin off through the air. The noble stares at his own hands with a blank face. Then the scream lands. Blood sprays down his sleeves and he howls at them to release him. Kalina lifts the bloody blade and asks the pigs in the stands if this still looks like a joke. "Send William down or get slaughtered here," she says. William stares straight back at her. Happy watches from the line of apprentices with a small smile on his face. Kalina says the slaughter feast is starting soon anyway, so they may as well begin a little early. Out past the field, the masked knight tells a hooded man this chaos is expected and to kill anyone who runs. The royals die first, then the day of slaughter begins, and nobody in those stands knows the real killing has not even started. If you made it this far, subscribe and drop a comment, and I will see you in the next one.